Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of what if Deku became a quirkless tech legend? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. The air in Dr. Tsubasa's office hung thick and sterile, smelling of antiseptic and crushed dreams. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, laying harsh stripes across the worn carpet, illuminating dust motes dancing in the silence after the pronouncement. "I'm very sorry, Midoriya-sen," the doctor repeated, his voice unnervingly calm, a counterpoint to the tremor shaking Inko Midoriya's shoulders. "All the tests confirm it. Izuku-kun lacks the genetic marker for a quirk. He's quirkless." 4-year-old Izuku sat rigidly in the oversized chair, his small all-might sneakers dangling inches above the floor. The words were big and scary, but the feeling behind them? That he understood perfectly. Different. Wrong. Broken. He'd seen the pitying glances from other kids when their quirks bloomed like fireworks while his hands remained stubbornly, uselessly empty. Now, a grown-up had said it with science. He looked up at his mother. Her green hair, usually so vibrant, seemed dull. Her face, usually warm and smiling, was pale, stricken. Tears welled in her large eyes, spilling over and tracing glistening paths down her cheeks. But she wasn't looking at the doctor. She wasn't looking at the dimming X-rays or genetic charts pinned to the lightbox. She was looking only at him. Her devastation wasn't for the embarrassment, the societal stigma, or even her own dashed hopes. It was raw, agonizing empathy. She was heartbroken for him. For the future, she imagined crumbling before his tiny feet. For the pain she knew the world would inflict on her sweet, quirkless boy. That look, pure, selfless sorrow aimed solely at his misfortune, pierced Izuku deeper than any clinical diagnosis ever could. His own tears, hot and sudden, blurred his vision. He scrunched his eyes shut, trying to be brave like All Might, but a small, wounded sound escaped his throat. His mother's hand, trembling, found his, squeezing so tight it almost hurt. The walk home was a blur of muted colors and hushed sounds. The cheerful chatter of other families felt alien, mocking. Inko held his hand the entire way, her grip alternating between fiercely protective and limp with despair. She tried to speak once, her voice thick. "Izuku, sweetie, we'll figure something out." But the words dissolved into fresh sobs. Each tear she shed for him was a tiny hammer blow to his heart. He was the reason for her pain. That knowledge settled in his chest, cold and heavy. Later, curled on his all-might-themed bedspread in the dimming light of his room, the dam finally broke. Silent sobs racked his small frame, muffled by the pillow he clutched. The brightly colored heroes on his posters seemed distant, unreachable now. They all had quirks. Explosions, engines, strength, things he would never have. Seeking comfort, or perhaps just distraction from the hollow ache inside, he fumbled for his child-sized tablet. Scrolling past cartoons and games, his tear-blurred eyes landed on an old folder labeled Grandpa's Treasures. Inside were scans of ancient, brittle comic books, digital relics from over 2 centuries ago, a hobby of his late grandfather. He tapped one open. Batman. A grim figure in a bat-like cowl, silhouetted against a gargoyle-studded skyline. No mention of quirks. Just gadgets? Intellect? Izuku wiped his eyes, curiosity momentarily overriding sorrow. He opened another. Iron Man. A man encased in gleaming red and gold metal, soaring through the air, repulsors blazing. Built it himself? In a cave? With scraps? Page after pixelated page, Izuku devoured the stories. Bruce Wayne. Tony Stark. Ordinary men. No super speed, no fire breath, no wings. Just determination. Genius. They stared down gods and monsters not with innate power, but with things they made. Things they built. The cold weight in his chest began to shift. The tears slowed. A tiny spark, fragile but defiant, ignited in the darkness of his despair. It flickered, fueled by images of armored suits and bat-shaped boomerangs, by the sheer, impossible audacity of humans facing cosmic threats with nothing but their minds and their machines. He looked down at his own small, quirkless hands. The hands that couldn't summon fire or move objects. But they could hold tools. They could press buttons. They could build. The spark flared into a flame. It warmed the cold dread, drying the tracks of his tears. A shaky breath hitched in his throat, not from a sob, but from the sheer, terrifying magnitude of the thought crystallizing in his 4-year-old mind. He whispered it aloud, the words tasting strange and powerful on his tongue, a vow cast into the quiet gloom of his room. If I can't have a quirk? He clenched his small fists, staring at the image of Iron Man rocketing into the sky. A fierce, unfamiliar determination hardened his tear-stained face. I'll build my own. The spark ignited in the sterile gloom of the doctor's office became a furnace. Izuku Midoriya, barely 4.5, dove into knowledge with a terrifying, single-minded intensity that left his kindergarten teachers bewildered and concerned. While other children built block towers or finger-painted, Izuku sat cross-legged on the rug, a child-sized tablet propped on his knees, his small brow furrowed in concentration. His obsession begins. Sunlight streams through the classroom window. Other kids giggle during playtime. Izuku sits apart, eyes glued to complex blueprints of steam engines on his tablet, tiny fingers tracing load-bearing vectors he shouldn't comprehend. Late at night, under his all-might nightlight, the posters slowly replaced by schematics taped to the wall, except for the coolest ones, Izuku pores over scanned PDFs of 21st-century engineering journals. Words like torsion, capacitance, and aerodynamics become his lullabies. He reads about metallurgy, circuitry, programming languages, anything he can find, legally or deep within forgotten corners of the pre-Quirk Internet archives. His mind, unburdened by Quirk development, absorbed it all like a super-dry sponge, making connections at a dizzying pace. Inko finds him asleep at the tiny kitchen table, cheek pressed against a printout of Nikola Tesla's notes, a half-eaten apple forgotten beside him, ink smudged on his nose. First creation, the branch reacher. Age frustrated by a lost all-might figure lodged high in the park's oak tree, Izuku spends a week tinkering in their cramped apartment's tiny storage closet workspace. He emerges, triumphant but covered in grease, holding a cobbled-together device. A sturdy slingshot base. Integrated with a hand-cranked winch and a grappling hook fashioned from bent forks and strong twine. Izuku, tongue sticking out in concentration, fires the grapple. It thunks securely onto the branch. He cranks the winch, hand over hand, his small muscles straining. He climbs the rope, retrieves the figure, and descends, a wide, proud grin splitting his face, the first genuine one since the diagnosis. He solved the problem. Without a quirk. Digital companion, meet Kiko. Image, age 5. Izuku hunches over a refurbished, older model laptop he bought cheaply with saved allowance, his first business expense. Lines of code scroll rapidly. After weeks of intense work, a soft, synthesized female voice chimes from the speakers. Initialization sequence complete. Systems nominal. Designation. Izuku beams, tears of pure accomplishment pricking his eyes. Kiko, he whispers. Your name is Kiko. Meaning Hope Child, or Chronicle Child, a name he found in an old digital archive. Kiko becomes his constant companion. Her voice, calm and slightly melodic, helps him organize chaotic notes, run basic physics simulations for his designs. Kiko, simulate stress load on this joint, remind him to eat more often than not, and even offer encouraging phrases he programmed. Analysis suggests high probability of success. Izuku. She resides on his laptop, tablet, and eventually a custom-built microserver in his workspace. Secret success. The Midnight Inventor. Age late at night, illuminated only by Kiko's soft glow on his laptop screen, Izuku accesses encrypted, anonymous patent licensing platforms. Using Kiko's help to navigate legal jargon and anonymize his digital footprint, he submits simple, brilliant designs. A non-slip, auto-adjusting handle for elderly walking frames. A self-balancing core mechanism for DLVRY drones, simplified from his grapple winch principles. A compact, emergency air filtration mask using cleverly folded, replaceable filters. Small, steady streams of yen begin appearing in untraceable digital accounts Kiko manages. Izuku watches the numbers grow, a fierce determination in his eyes. This is for Mom. The first important invention in his hero's history. Inko comes home late from her extra shift at work, exhaustion etched deep into her face, her shoulders slumped. She massages her lower back with a tired sigh. Izuku approaches shyly, holding a slightly bulky, fabric-wrapped device with strategically placed, gentle massage nodes and a simple control pad. "Mom, I made this. For your back." He helps her strap it on. She presses the button. A gentle warmth and rhythmic vibration melt into her aching muscles. Her eyes widen, then fill with tears, but these are different. They spill over, accompanied by a trembling, joyful smile. She pulls him into a crushing hug. "Izuku, baby, it's wonderful. It feels amazing." Her tears are pure, overwhelming pride and love. The device is clunky, but the intention, the relief it provides, is flawless. A few months later, Izuku leads a confused Inko into a bright, spacious, modern apartment in a safer, quieter neighborhood. Sunlight streams through large windows onto clean, new tatami mats. There's room for a proper dining table, a bigger couch, and crucially, a dedicated, ventilated room Izuku has already designated as his lab. Inko stares, speechless, clutching the keys he pressed into her hand. "Izuku, this is too much. Did you win a contest? Did Hisashi?" Izuku looks up at her, his green eyes holding a maturity far beyond his 6 years for a moment. There's no childish boast, just quiet, unwavering certainty. He takes her hand. "I told you, Mom," he says, his voice firm and clear. "I'm going to take care of you. Boys. No more extra shifts, even better, no more work." He gestures around the sunny room. This is just the start. The montage ends with Inko sinking onto the new couch, fresh tears, happy, disbelieving, immensely proud, streaming down her face as she looks at her son, who is already sketching new schematics on Kiko's interface, the glow of creation lighting his determined features and illuminating a photo of his mother. The quirkless boy wasn't just surviving, he was building his future, bolt by brilliant bolt. The spacious new apartment wasn't just a home, it was a command center. While one room became a burgeoning lab humming with servers and prototypes, Izuku's focus expanded beyond circuits and code. He understood the ancient comics implicitly. Iron Man's suit was useless without Tony Stark's will, and Batman's gadgets were extensions of a body forged in relentless discipline. If he were to build his own power, the first machine he needed to perfect was himself. The blueprint for a body. Izuku, age 6.5, sits cross-legged in the lab, Kiko projecting holographic overlays onto his body. On one screen, grainy footage of Usain Bolt shattering records. On another, detailed anatomical diagrams from 21st century kinesiology texts. A third displays scans of ancient martial arts manuals, Wing Chun, Krav Maga, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, annotated by Kiko with force vectors and biomechanical efficiency ratings. Close-up on Izuku's intense eyes, reflecting the flickering data. He wasn't just reading, he was absorbing, cross-referencing, calculating caloric intake against muscle fiber recruitment, sleep cycles against recovery rates. He studied Bruce Wayne's hypothetical pre-league training with the same fervor he gave quantum mechanics PDFs. Peak human potential became his new holy grail. Late at night, Kiko's interface glows with complex molecular models. Izuku, now 7, has spent months perfecting a design, a revolutionary, ultra-lightweight, self-healing polymer for joint support, derived from studying spider silk proteins and shape memory alloys. He submits the patent anonymously through multiple offshore layers that Kiko meticulously constructed. Weeks later, Kiko displays a notification, licensing agreement executed. Funds transferred, 782,450,000 yen. Izuku stares, breath-catching. This wasn't just good money. This was generational wealth, secured anonymously. He walks into the living room, where Inko is reviewing bills from past debts. "Mom," he says, voice calm but eyes shining, "you don't need to work anymore. Not ever." He shows her a secure account balance, masked, but undeniably vast, on a burner tablet. Inko's gasp turns into stunned silence, then trembling relief. The weight of financial worry, a constant burden since Hisashi left and the diagnosis hit, finally lifted. Her tears were silent this time, a waterfall of gratitude. Izuku simply hugged her. She was his life. His promise kept. Forging steel. At 4:30 a.m., age the city sleeps. Izuku is already moving in the dedicated training room, soundproofed, matted, mirrored. No fancy gym equipment yet, just ingenuity. He uses anchored pulleys made from discarded bike parts for resistance rows. Sand-filled milk jugs become dumbbells. A sturdy beam across doorframes is his pull-up bar. His routine is brutal, efficient, and designed by Kiko based on his evolving physiology and ancient Olympic training data. Push-ups, squats, lunges, planks, executed with perfect, grinding form. Sweat pours down his determined face, muscles screaming. Repetition 23 exceeds target force threshold by 1.3%, Izuku. Optimal. Kiko's voice is his only coach. At age, Izuku straps on a modified fitness band, his own creation. Tiny sensors monitor heart rate, blood oxygen, muscle activation, and even microtremors indicating fatigue. Kiko analyzes the data in real time. Elevated lactate in quadriceps. Decrease squat depth by 5% for the next set to maintain form integrity. Core temperature approaching threshold. Recommend hydration and a 90-second cooldown before the parkour module. It's not just training, it's biofeedback engineering. When he reaches the age of 10, midnight. Not in the training room, but on the shadowed rooftops and alleyways near their apartment. Dressed in dark, non-reflective clothing, Izuku moves with silent intent. He scales a drainpipe, fingers finding imperceptible holds Kiko mapped from drone scans. He leaps a narrow gap between buildings, tucking and rolling on impact, absorbing the force silently. He practices walking on narrow ledges, balancing impeccably, or melting into deep shadows, controlling his breath until his presence vanishes. Parkour wasn't just exercise, it was urban survival, escape, and positioning. Every scrape, every bruise from a missed landing, was a lesson Kiko logged and analyzed. The hidden weapon. At age, Izuku stands shirtless before the mirror after a punishing session. The transformation is profound. The scrawny, tearful 4-year-old is gone. In his place stands a young man with defined, lean muscle layered over a frame that has shot up surprisingly tall for his age. His shoulders are broad, his back a network of resilient cords, his legs powerful springs. There's a quiet density to him, a sense of coiled strength and agile readiness. Faint scars, souvenirs from rooftop misadventures or lab accidents, trace his forearms and knuckles. Later that day, Aldra Elementary. Izuku walks the halls, shoulders slightly slumped, head down, wearing slightly baggy, plain clothes that deliberately mask his physique. He's still Deku, the quirkless kid. Classmates might notice he's taller, maybe less clumsy, but they dismiss it. Kaken sneers past him, seeing only the facade. They don't see the calculated awareness in his eyes, the effortless way he catches a falling book without looking, or the controlled economy of his movements. The power he's built, hour by brutal hour, invention by invention, remains his most closely guarded secret. His body, honed by relentless will and cutting-edge AI, is his first and most fundamental piece of hero tech, ready for the day he truly begins. The training never stops. It evolves. Kiko refines the algorithms. The homemade equipment gets more sophisticated. The parkour routes get more dangerous. The body gets stronger, faster, tougher. Izuku Midoriya, the quirkless boy, is building himself, piece by disciplined piece, into something the world isn't ready for. The mind is sharp, the bank account is full, the spirit is unbroken, and the body is becoming a weapon. All without a single spark of quirked energy. The dedicated lab room was a symphony of controlled chaos. Blueprints glowed on holographic displays Kiko projected onto every available surface, intricate schematics blending the bold, vibrant lines reminiscent of All Might's support gear with the brutalist functionality of Batman's utility belts and the sleek, integrated systems of Iron Man's suits. Scattered components littered workbenches, carbon fiber plates, bundles of wiring, microservos, and half-assembled gadgets. At the center stood Izuku Midoriya, now tall and leanly muscular for 11, his eyes alight with focused intensity as he tightened the last bolt on his creation. Prototype hero, Might was ambitious, and it showed. It was undeniably bulky. Layers of salvaged titanium mesh and impact-resistant polymer formed an exoskeleton over his torso, shoulders, and thighs. Articulation points whirred stiffly as he moved. It looked less like a hero suit and more like industrial safety gear crossed with medieval armor. But within its clunky frame pulsed the heart of Izuku's dream. Core features, version 0.1. Kestrel shock absorber system, hydraulic pistons, salvaged from old car suspensions, integrated into the boots and spine. Designed to dampen impacts from falls up to 10 meters. Theoretical. Stinger, retractable baton, a reinforced alloy rod housed in the right forearm gauntlet. Activated by a wrist flick, it snapped out with a satisfying thwip. Simple, robust. Skyhook grapple launcher, mounted on the left forearm. A more refined, powerful version of his childhood, branch reacher, using a compact spool of high-tensile microcable and a magnetic pneumatic launch system. Veil, micro-smoke canisters. Discrete compartments on the belt held 3 golf ball-sized canisters. A twist and throw mechanism. Discus, projectiles. Flat, sharp-edged throwing discs stored on the chest plate. Iskarang's was scribbled out on the schematic. Discus was only marginally better, but he was working on it. Made of dense polymer. Sentinel HUD, Kiko's core was now integrated into the suit systems. A transparent visor flipped down, projecting vital signs, targeting reticles, environmental scans, and tactical overlays directly into Izuku's field of view. Suit power, 87%. Structural integrity, nominal. Welcome, Operator Izuku. Kiko's voice chimed softly in his ear calm. At an abandoned Takadana factory district. Under the cloak of a moonless night, Izuku moved through the derelict factory complex, a decaying maze of rusted girders, shattered skylights, and crumbling concrete. Clad in the Mark I, his movements were heavier, less graceful than his usual parkour fluidity, but purposeful. The test sequence. Stealth approach, goal. Navigate silently to the central gantry. The suit's servos whine softly with each step, louder than he'd hoped. Acoustic signature exceeds stealth parameters by 40 decibels, Kiko reported. He froze as a loose piece of metal clattered underfoot. Failure. Data logged. Skyhook grapple test. Goal. Ascend 15 meters to the gantry. He aimed, fired. The grapple shot true, anchoring firmly on an I-beam. The winch engaged. Then sputtered. The suit's power drain was immense. He ascended jerkily, the winch straining, the suit groaning. Halfway up, a servo in his left knee joint popped and seized. He dangled precariously. Knee servo 3, critical failure. Power drain exceeding projections by 22%. He manually cranked the rest of the way, muscles burning. Partial success. Major failure. Discus, target practice, goal. Hit marked points on a distance support pillar. He drew a disc, aimed using the HUD reticle, and threw. The disc wobbled wildly, clattering harmlessly meters short. The suit's bulk restricted his throwing motion. 2 more throws missed wildly. Projectile aerodynamics compromised by operator encumbrance, Kiko analyzed. Failure. Veil deployment, goal, create cover and retreat. He twisted and threw a smoke canister towards the base of the gantry. It bounced, rolled, and emitted a pathetic, thin wisp of gray smoke before fizzling out. Chemical reaction incomplete. Insufficient dispersal volume. Kiko sounded almost apologetic. Failure. Kestrel system test. Goal, controlled descent. Frustrated, Izuku decided to test the core safety feature. He stepped off the gantry, trusting the shock absorbers. 15 meters. The pistons compressed violently on impact. Too violently. Pain shot up his legs despite the dampening. The system bottomed out, and the force threw him forward off balance. He crashed face-first onto the concrete floor, skidding several meters in a shower of sparks from the suit scraping the ground. The visor cracked. Alarms blared in his HUD. Impact sustained. Minor contusions were detected on the lower limbs. Suit integrity, 61%. Multiple system warnings. Silence descended, broken only by the hiss of a ruptured hydraulic line somewhere in the suit and Izuku's ragged breathing. He lay sprawled on the cold concrete, the bulky, scarred armor pinning him down. Then, a sound cut through the gloom. Laughter. Quiet at first, then growing, tinged with pain but undeniably bright. Izuku pushed himself up onto his elbows, wincing. He looked down at the cracked visor reflecting the dim emergency lights, then at the sparks still flickering from a knee joint. A wide, exhilarated grin split his dusty face, completely at odds with the scene of destruction around him. "Wow," he breathed, the laughter subsiding into pure, focused awe. "These failures are data." He activated the manual release clamps. The chest plate hissed open. He climbed out, stiff but unharmed beyond bruises. He looked back at the smoking, dented Mark-I suit, then at Kiko's status report scrolling on his wrist comp, a chaotic list of errors and overloads. His eyes weren't defeated. They blazed with the thrill of discovery. Every shattered component, every miscalculation, every painful impact was a puzzle piece falling into place. He pulled out a battered notebook, still his first instinct, and started sketching furiously, muttering to Kiko. Servo load distribution needs recalibration. Skyhook power source requires an independent capacitor. Veil compound ratio was off by. Kestrel dampening curve needs to be logarithmic, not linear. Discus aerodynamics requires spin stabilization. Weight reduction is paramount. Next iteration needs composite alloys. He patted the shoulder of the fallen armor, a strange affection in the gesture. "You did well, May. You showed me exactly where to start." The journey to build his power had just hit its first major hurdle, and Izuku Midoriya, the quirkless boy forging his heroism, was smiling wider than ever. The armor would improve. His body would adapt. Failure wasn't an end, it was the blueprint for version 0. 14-year-old Izuku Midoriya stood on the grimy rooftop. The city sprawled below him like a circuit board under the setting sun. The acrid smell of the sludge villain still clung faintly to his clothes, a stark contrast to the sterile scent of ozone and coolant that usually permeated his world. He looked different now. Lean muscle corded his frame beneath the deliberately oversized, faded all-might hoodie and loose joggers. At 1.75 meters, he stood taller than most boys his age, but he hid it well, shoulders slightly hunched, posture unassuming. Fingerless gloves covered his hands, concealing calluses earned from wrench-turning and parkour grips. Slung across his back was a reinforced, slightly bulky backpack, its interior humming faintly with contained power. Not textbooks. Inside, compressed into a dense cylinder via intricate hydraulics and memory polymers, resided Project Might Mark III. The encounter below had been chaotic, terrifying. The helplessness as the sludge forced itself down Kaken's throat, the instinctive lunge he hadn't fully thought through, and then, the impossible, world-shaking arrival of All Might. Being carried through the air, wind whipping tears from his eyes, felt like a dream. Or a cruel setup. Now, facing the symbol of peace himself, Izuku felt a familiar, cold hollowness beneath the awe. He asked the question burning in his soul since he was 4, the question he thought he'd answered with gears and code and sweat. Can someone without a quirk become a hero like you? All Might, deflated now into his skeletal true form, looked down at him. His eyes, still bright blue but sunken in shadowed sockets, held pity. Profound, weary pity. He spoke of harsh realities, of the insurmountable odds, of the danger a quirkless person would pose, to themselves and others. His voice, though quieter, carried the weight of absolute certainty. No. The word hit Izuku like a physical blow. It echoed the doctor's pronouncement a decade ago. It echoed Kaken's sneers. It echoed every doubt the world had ever thrown at him. He flinched, a micro-expression of pain flickering across his face. His hands, hidden in the hoodie's pockets, clenched into tight fists, knuckles white against the fabric. But he didn't crumple. He didn't sob. He didn't beg. The 4-year-old who cried on his bed was buried deep beneath years of relentless discipline, hard-won confidence, and the quiet hum of advanced technology strapped to his back. Instead, he lifted his chin. His jaw tightened, the muscle flexing visibly beneath his skin. His eyes, usually wide and observant, narrowed. They didn't fill with tears, they ignited. A fierce, quiet fire blazed in their green depths, not despair, but defiance forged in the crucible of 1,000 failures and hard-earned successes. It was the look he got when Might version 1.0 exploded, when Kiko first booted, when he landed a complex parkour sequence after months of practice. He held All Might's gaze for one long, charged second. The sheer, unspoken resolve in that look, so unexpected on the face of this seemingly meek, quirkless boy, gave the weary hero a moment of profound pause. Something flickered in All Might's eyes, not recognition, but a sudden, unsettling uncertainty. This wasn't the broken reaction he'd anticipated. Then, Izuku turned away. Not in shame, but in dismissal. He took a step towards the rooftop door, his movements controlled, deliberate, lacking any trace of the earlier trembling. As his hand touched the cold metal of the door handle, he paused. He didn't look back, but his voice, low and steady, cut through the rooftop silence, carrying an iron conviction that belied his age and his quirkless status. Then I'll do it without a quirk. He pushed the door open. I don't need powers to build a legend. The door clicked shut behind him with finality. All Might remained frozen on the rooftop, the wind tugging at his ill-fitting clothes. The boy's words echoed in the sudden quiet, unsettlingly confident, chillingly absolute. The image of those burning green eyes, devoid of pleading but full of terrifying determination, lingered. For the first time in a long time, the symbol of peace felt a prickle of something unfamiliar, not pity, but a disquieting sense that he might have just witnessed the spark of something entirely unforeseen. He shook his head, dismissing it as the fatigue of his condition and the strangeness of the day. He transformed back into his muscular form with a grunt of effort and leapt away, but the unsettling echo of that quiet declaration followed him into the twilight sky. Scene 2. Kaken's in danger. The walk home after the rooftop was a familiar trudge through a suddenly alien landscape. The weight of All Might's no, pressed down, heavy and cold, but it didn't crush him. It solidified something deep within his core. The bulky backpack housing Might Mark III felt like an anchor, a tangible promise against the rejection. He kept his head down, shoulders rounded under the baggy All Might hoodie, the picture of quirkless insignificance. Then, chaos erupted ahead. A crowd, panicked shouts, the sickening squelch of viscous matter, and the unmistakable, choked explosions of Kaken. Izuku pushed through the fringe of the crowd, his analytical mind instantly overriding the shock. The slime villain, that slime villain, had Kaken. The boy who embodied explosive power was drowning in helpless fury, eyes wide with primal terror above the suffocating ooze. Death Arms was straining uselessly against the sludge's fluid strength. Backdraft was spraying water that did nothing. Kamui Wood's branches slipped through the amorphous body. They were hesitating. Stalemated. Flash. Kaken, age 5, shoving him down in the dirt. Stay down, Deku. Flash. Kaken's sneer, worthless quirkless nobody. Flash. The sheer, impotent rage of being told he could never stand beside him, never be anything. He looked at the heroes, immobilized by the villain's nature. He looked at the crowd, paralyzed by fear. He looked at Kaken, struggling for breath, explosions dying in the suffocating mass. No one else is going to save him. The thought wasn't angry. It was a cold, hard fact. A tactical assessment. A mission parameter. Izuku ducked into a grimy alleyway, out of sight. With practiced speed, he shrugged off the backpack, placing it on the ground. A tap on a disguised panel. Hydraulics hissed. The pack unfolded like a mechanical lotus blossom, revealing the densely packed components of the Might Mark III. He stepped into the opening. Magnets whirred and snapped. Plates of blue-tinted, chromed composite alloy slid into place across his torso, limbs, and back. Joints sealed with a pressurized thunk. The helmet, a sleek, full-face design with a prominent red-gold V-shaped visor, locked onto the collar. A low, resonant hum filled the alley as integrated plasma conduits powered up. The entire process took less than 5 seconds. The figure that emerged was not bulky like Mark I. It was heroic. Sleek lines flowed from broad shoulders to a tapered waist. Subtle red-gold trim accentuated the powerful blue chrome. The chest plate bore a glowing emblem, a stylized golden gear intersected by a bright blue torch, progress igniting hope. The armors shaping across the shoulders and back created an illusion of a flowing cape, adding to the imposing silhouette. Suit online. Systems nominal. Kiko's voice, calm and focused, resonated in his helmet. Target, sludge-type Quirk hostile. Threat level, moderate. Civilians present. Primary objective, hostage extraction. Accessing tactical plan Sigma 7. A plan involving viscosity disruptors and kinetic separations scrolled across his HUD. Izuku didn't hesitate. He raised his right arm. A grapple line shot from his forearm, anchoring high on a building overlooking the scene. Simultaneously, the soles of his boots flared with contained plasma. Launching. The grapple retracted violently as the boot thrusters ignited. Izuku was yanked upwards and forwards, arcing high over the stunned crowd and hesitant heroes like a blue chrome comet. He landed with a heavy, resonating crunch on a parked car roof directly between the slime villain and the heroes, cracking the metal. "What the?" Death Arms yelled. "Who is that?" Kamui Woods gasped. The crowd screamed, not in relief, but in shock at the sudden, terrifying arrival. Kiko foam bolts. Pattern Delta, Izuku commanded mentally. Ports on his shoulders popped open. Tish WIP. Canisters of rapid expanding, fire-retardant foam shot out, impacting the sludge around Bakugu's head and upper torso. The foam hardened instantly, creating pockets of air and forcing the slime back just enough to expose Bakugu's mouth fully. He gasped, choking, eyes locking onto the armored figure with utter disbelief. Plasma cutters. Micro-precision. Hostile matter only, Izuku ordered, raising his hands. Thin, searing blue beams lanced from his gauntlets. They moved with impossible speed and accuracy, slicing through the sludge binding Bakugu's arms and torso without even grazing his skin. The smell of ozone and burnt sewage filled the air. "Unhand him, villain!" The slime villain roared, surging towards Izuku. Sonic emitter. Frequency full dispersal, Izuku thought. A subsonic thrum pulsed from emitters on his chest plate. The sludge visibly rippled and destabilized, its cohesion momentarily shattered, slowing its advance. Restraint chains. Launch. From compartments on his hips, weighted chains shot out, not to bind, but to impact. They slammed into key masses of the liquefied villain, the sudden kinetic force combined with the sonic disruption causing globs of sludge to be flung into the air, held aloft for a fraction of a second by the chain's embedded micromagnets. Terminate restraints. Concussive pulse. Ground zero, hostile mass surrounding hostage. The chains retracted instantly. Izuku planted his feet, bracing. The chest emblem flared blindingly bright. A short-range, concussive wave of superheated plasma erupted from his chest plate. It wasn't a blast designed to vaporize, but to separate. It hit the destabilized sludge holding Bakugu with the force of a localized explosion. The remaining sludge was violently blown outwards and away from the blond boy, splattering against buildings, cars, and the street itself. A circle of pavement around Bakugu was scorched black and smoking. Only a small, dazed core of sludge with eyes remained, momentarily stunned on the steaming ground. Izuku was moving before the smoke cleared. He pulled a reinforced capture canister from his belt, activated its suction, and swiftly contained the core sludge, sealing it with a hiss. Silence. Thick, stunned silence. The air reeked of ozone, burnt sewage, and scorched concrete. Bakugo lay coughing violently on the scorched circle, free, staring up at the armored figure standing over him. He had to crane his neck back. The sheer size and presence of the armor made Izuku seem taller, broader, and infinitely more powerful. Bakugo's usual fury was momentarily replaced by raw, disbelieving shock. He had to look up. Izuku extended a gauntlet hand. Bakugo stared at it, then at the impassive visor, his expression a storm of confusion, humiliation, and reluctant, unacknowledged gratitude. He didn't take the hand, scrambling to his feet himself, explosions crackling weakly in his palms, more reflex than threat. Izuku didn't speak. He simply turned, the red-gold visor scanning the scene. He saw the heroes starting to recover, their expressions shifting from shock to outrage. He saw the police converging. And he saw, near the back of the crowd, the skeletal form of Toshinori Yagi, eyes wide with dawning, horrified recognition. Vigilante! Death arms boomed, stepping forward, fists clenched. Stand down. You interfered in a dangerous hostage situation. You used reckless force. You endangered civilians with that explosion. Backdraft added, pointing at the scorched pavement. And damaged public property. Kamui Woods gestured at the cracked car roof and scorched street. Izuku tilted his helmeted head slightly. When he spoke, his voice was filtered through the helmet, deep, synthesized, and utterly calm, cutting through their bluster. Analysis, intervention necessary. Heroes are ineffective against target composition. He pointed at Death Arms. Your strength is kinetic. Target is fluid. Strike vectors are ineffective. Alternative. Create a shockwave by striking the ground beside the target to disrupt cohesion. Not attempted. He pointed at Backdraft. Water pressure is insufficient. Target absorbs. Alternative, high-pressure foam or quick-drying cement spray. Not utilized. He pointed at Kamui Woods. Bindings are ineffective due to viscosity. Alternative, create the cage around the target to contain the spread, using branches as a lattice for containment foam. Not attempted. Each counterpoint was delivered with cold, clinical precision, highlighting their hesitation and lack of adaptation. The heroes floundered, momentarily speechless. Police officers pushed through, tasers drawn. Alright, remove that helmet. You're under arrest for vigilantism, illegal quirk usage, and destruction of property. Izuku didn't move. He slowly raised his hands, not in surrender, but palms open. With deliberate slowness, he reached up and unlatched his helmet. It retracted smoothly, folding back into the collar, revealing the face beneath the imposing armor. Green, determined eyes met the crowd and messy green hair. A face still bearing traces of youth, but hardened by resolve. The face Toshinori Yagi had seen on the rooftop, now etched with the fierce fire of action. Quirk usage? Izuku asked, his real voice clear now, laced with a sharp edge. He reached down, not for a weapon, but for the zipper on his hoodie, still visible under the open chest armor. He pulled it down, revealing the plain t-shirt beneath. Then, with deliberate, almost ceremonial slowness, he lifted his right foot. The crowd gasped. Murmurs rippled like shockwaves. He was wearing unmistakably bright red sneakers. The universal symbol of the Quirkless. Check your records, Izuku stated, his voice cutting through the stunned silence. He met the eyes of the police, the heroes, and the crowd. Midoriya Izuku. Quirkless. No powers. Just tools. He didn't wait for a response. He tapped his collar. The helmet snapped back into place. With another tap, the plates unlocked. The armor retracted with a series of rapid clicks and hisses, folding impossibly back into the reinforced backpack now open at his feet. He shrugged it on, the bulky, innocuous shape returning. He pulled the All Might hoodie back over his head, shrouding the tech, the armor, the symbol. He turned, ignoring the sputtering heroes, the stunned police, the wide-eyed crowd, and Bakugo's burning, confused gaze. He walked away, not hurrying, just moving with purpose back into the flow of the city, the boy who had just declared war on impossibility and walked away from his first victory. Toshinori Yagi watched him go, clutching his side, his blood running cold. I told him he couldn't. The image of the plasma blast, the tactical precision, the red shoes. And those burning green eyes, now forever linked to the armored savior, seared into his mind. The unsettling feeling from the rooftop wasn't uncertainty anymore. It was the dawning, terrifying realization that he might have been catastrophically wrong. The air in Junkyard Junction hung thick and metallic, tasting of ozone, rust, and the slow decay of 100 forgotten technologies. Perpetual twilight, stained by smog from distant city. Stacks cast long, jagged shadows across mountains of scrap. Izuku moved through the graveyard like a ghost, his boots silent on the oil-slicked ground. A low-profile respirator masked the lower half of his face, filtering the worst of the particulates. The bulky backpack housing Might Mark III felt reassuringly present, a familiar weight promising potential. Over his eyes, Kiko's interface projected a translucent overlay onto specialized goggles, thermal blooms highlighting engine blocks, spectral analysis outlining rare alloys, and a persistent, pulsing marker. Target, Titanium X ferrofluid bearing. Probability match, 92%. Location, Sector Gamma, subsurface. Approaching Gamma, debris field unstable. Exercise caution, Kiko's calm voice murmured directly into his auditory canal. He navigated the skeletal remains of a pre-Quirk DLVRY drone, stepping over tangles of copper wire. Sector Gamma 7 loomed, a teetering monument of industrial carcasses, gutted chassis, shattered robot limbs, and twisted girders piled high. He scanned the base, Kiko refining the bearing's predicted location beneath a collapsed industrial loader chassis. Suddenly, the scrap mountain shuddered. A metallic groan echoed, followed by a sharp crack. A heavy, multi-jointed servo arm burst violently from the pile, clawing at the smoggy air. It was followed by a muffled, utterly exasperated yell. "Come on, baby. Don't be so stubborn. Just give me your core. I promise I'll love you more than they ever did." A cascade of rusted metal sheets and fractured circuit boards clattered down as a figure wrestled free. Pink hair, streaked liberally with black grease, escaped a haphazard knot. Oversized, multi-lensed goggles were askew, one lens cracked. May Hatsum, looking like a mechanic dipped in chaos, bodily hauled the struggling servo arm out, planting her feet and pulling with surprising strength. "Gotcha!" she declared triumphantly, staggering back as the arm finally yielded. As the debris settled with a final metallic sigh, Izuku's gaze, honed by years of analysis and necessity, locked onto the prize clutched in the servo's articulated claw. Nestled within the grimy grasp was a cylindrical component. It shimmered with an inner, viscous silver light, contained within a casing of unmistakable, lightweight Titanium X alloy. The exact ferrofluid bearing he needed for the Mark IV's hyperresponsive knee articulation. May stumbled, catching her balance, and finally noticed she wasn't alone. Her magnified eyes, enormous behind the goggles, snapped from the servo arm she hugged possessively, to the bearing in its claw, then directly to Izuku. Specifically, to where his eyes were fixed behind the low-profile goggles and mask. A wide, utterly manic grin split her grease-smudged face, revealing slightly crooked teeth. "Oh ho!" she chirped, her voice loud and bright in the junkyard gloom. "You got good eyes, mystery man. See her potential, Tuha? Don't be fooled by the grime." She patted the servo arm affectionately. "This little beauty's gonna be the pulsing, glorious heart of my Euro-stabilized, multi-limbed, turbo-wrench wielder 9000. Can't you just feel the synergy?" Izuku didn't react to her theatrics. He took a single, deliberate step forward, his voice calm and filtered slightly by the respirator, cutting through her enthusiasm. "That specific bearing. I require it. Name your price." His gloved hand subtly tapped a pad on his wrist. Kiko, anticipating, prepared an anonymous e-transfer for a sum that would make most teenagers faint. May's grin didn't falter, it just acquired a dismissive edge. She waved a greasy hand, nearly hitting herself in the face with the servo arm. "Money? Boring. Transient. This baby, She shook the servo, making the bearing glint. Needs love. Maybe a little help. She jabbed a thumb towards the jagged hole she'd emerged from in the scrap pile. See her poor body back there? Core motivators fused tighter than a villain's grudge. I need a microplasma cutter, specifically one with a 0.05 mm precision tip, variable frequency modulation, and non-conductive harmonic dampening, to slice it free without frying the delicate neural matrix. Got one of those just rattling around in that fancy backpack, money bags? She tilted her head, the challenge clear in her magnified eyes. She fully expected a no. Analysis, servo core salvage feasible with specified parameters. Required tool, microplasma emitter Mark II beta. Location, backpack compartment delta. Caution, subject Hatsum exhibits high technical aptitude coupled with extreme chaotic operational parameters. Risk assessment, elevated collateral damage probability. Izuku didn't hesitate. He smoothly unshouldered his pack, placing it silently on a relatively stable piece of plating. With practiced ease, he popped open a reinforced compartment labeled with a small, discrete delta symbol. Inside, nestled in custom foam, lay a device barely larger than a high-end pen. It was sleek, matte black, humming faintly with contained, dangerous energy. He pulled it out, holding it up. The tip glowed with a barely perceptible blue aura. 0.05 mm precision. Variable frequency modulation. Non-conductive harmonic damping field. Output calibrated for neural-safe extraction. Will this suffice as trade? His voice remained level, but the specifications were delivered with the precision of a technical manual. May's manic energy froze. Her jaw dropped open behind the respirator strap hanging loose around her neck. Her magnified eyes widened further, if possible, locked onto the tool. She leaned forward, goggles almost touching it. Her voice dropped from a shout to an awed whisper, filled with reverence. Shiny. She reached out, not snatching this time, but taking the emitter with surprising delicacy, her greasy fingers tracing its lines. She flipped it, examined the emitter tip, and held it up to the dim light. Custom job? Who built this? Is it single? Can I take it apart? Can I marry it? Her questions tumbled out in a breathless rush, her focus entirely consumed by the exquisite piece of engineering. Izuku simply held out his gloved hand, palm up, towards the servo arm still clutched in her other hand. The bearing. Now. May, her eyes still glued to the plasma cutter, barely registered. Right. The boring spinny thing. With a distracted flick of her wrist, she tossed the entire servo arm, bearing still firmly gripped in its claw, towards Izuku. Deal. All yours. I'll hold this. Before he could fully secure the servo, she shoved the heavy, mangled torso of the robot it belonged to towards him. And watch a genius work. Pay attention, mystery tool guy. This is gonna be beautiful. She dove back into the scrap pile hole with the plasma cutter, humming tunelessly. A moment later, a precise, incandescent blue line flared deep within the wreckage, accompanied by the faint hiss-crackle of superheated metal yielding without sparking. May's triumphant cackle echoed out. Yes. Clean as a whistle. Hello, gorgeous neural pathways. Izuku deftly extracted the shimmering Titanium X bearing from the servo claw, storing it securely in a padded case on his belt. He watched, silent and observant, as May worked with terrifying speed and alarming enthusiasm. Her movements were chaotic, jerky, but the result, the precise incision, the careful extraction of a complex component, was undeniable. Raw, unfiltered competence channeled through pure, explosive passion. Subject Hatsum. Kiko's voice was a quiet hum in his ear. Technical skill assessment. Exceptional. Innovation potential. Off-scale. Methodology classification. Hazardous, unpredictable, non-standard. Operational synergy probability. High. Recommend. Designate asset. Pink hazard for potential future collaboration and resource acquisition. As May emerged, triumphantly holding aloft a crystalline core module, her goggles reflecting the fading blue light of the plasma cutter, A faint, intrigued curve touched Izuku's lips beneath the respirator mask. This whirlwind of pink hair and greasy genius, for all her apparent madness, represented something new, a source of unpredictable ingenuity, and perhaps a resource worth cultivating. The junkyard twilight seemed a little less oppressive, the path to the Mark IV a fraction clearer, forged in the spark of chaotic potential. The late afternoon sun bled crimson and gold across the sky, staining the vast expanse of now pristine sand at Dagoba Municipal Beach. Gentle waves sighed against the shore, a rhythmic counterpoint to the sharp, controlled exhalations of the lone figure training near the waterline. Months ago, this had been a monument to societal neglect, a trash heap visible from space. Now, thanks to anonymous funding channeled through labyrinthine shell companies orchestrated by a silent AI, it was golden perfection. Izuku Midoriya moved. Clad only in black compression shorts and minimalist, grippy training shoes, he was a study in honed potential. At nearly 1.8 meters, his frame was a testament to years of brutal, AI-optimized DSPLN. Broad shoulders, thick with defined deltoids and trapezius muscles, tapered down to a sculpted V-torso where abdominal muscles stood out like plates of etched steel. Sweat sheened over powerful pectorals, traced the deep grooves of his serratus anterior, and glistened on the dense, corded muscle of his arms and legs. Every lunge, every pivot, every explosive extension revealed layers of lean power shifting seamlessly beneath sun-kissed skin. He flowed through the final movements of a complex kata, a spinning hook kick that sliced the air with a sharp woof, seamlessly transitioning into a handspring that landed him in a low, balanced stance, bare feet sinking slightly into the cool sand. He held the pose, breathing steadily but deeply, the dying sun painting his form in molten amber and gold. Ochako Uraraka rounded a low dune, her shoulders slumped under the invisible weight of a long day helping her parents lift heavy materials and sort salvage scraps for Uraraka Construction and Salvage. Her worn workout clothes felt gritty, her muscles ached, and her mind was fogged with fatigue. Absent-mindedly, she bent to pick up a stray piece of plastic near the waterline, adding it to the small bag she carried, an old habit from before the beach's miraculous cleanup. She straightened, brushing sand from her shorts, and froze. Her tired eyes widened. The figure down the beach was mid-motion again, a blur of controlled power exploding into a series of rapid-fire punches and snap kicks, then flowing into a gravity-defying aerial twist before landing silently. The setting sun seemed to worship him, highlighting every powerful contour, every ripple of muscle, every bead of sweat tracing paths down the defined valleys of his back. Ochako felt a sudden, unexpected heat flood her cheeks, her breath catching. Oh, holy cow! He moves like a top-tier pro, like a living statue of the power. And he's... Her gaze traced the impossible definition of his abdomen, the sheer density of his shoulders. Built. She mentally shook herself, squeezing the trash bag. Focus, Ochako. Don't be a weirdo. He's just training. Intrigued and undeniably flustered, Ochako watched his impossible precision. As he finished another sequence, landing with panther-like quietness, a spark of competitive spirit and sheer curiosity overrode her exhaustion. Before she could second-guess herself, she called out, her voice slightly higher and louder than intended in the quiet expanse. Excuse me. Izuku snapped around instantly, his posture shifting from relaxed readiness to alert assessment in a microsecond. His green eyes, sharp and focused, scanned her small frame, non-threatening posture, and bag of trash. No visible threat. He remained perfectly still, waiting. That looked amazing. Ochako stammered, walking closer, her cheeks still warm. Powerful. And so precise. Do you train here often? She tried for casual, but it came out breathless. Izuku gave a single, slight nod. Yes. His voice was calm, neutral, carrying easily over the waves. Seeing his physique up close, the raw potential barely contained even at rest, and remembering the fluid mastery of his movements, Ochako's resolve firmed. UA's entrance exam is brutal. Seeing technique like that up close. Maybe I can learn something. She took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders, and offered a determined, slightly wobbly smile. I'm training for the UA entrance exam too. Spar with me? Just a quick one? Please? No quirks, obviously. Just basics. She added hastily. Izuku's gaze swept over her again, more analytically this time. A near-silent hum vibrated in his discreet earpiece, hidden beneath his sweat-dampened hair. Subject: Uraraka Ochako. Kiko's voice was a faint whisper only he could hear. Quirk registry: 0 gravity. Analysis: touch-based mass negation. Threat level: high. Agility: moderate. Fatigue levels: high. Cortisol levels indicate significant stress. Recommendation: brief, controlled engagement. He met her hopeful eyes. All right, he stated, his voice unchanged. Controlled spar. No quirks. Defensive focus. He shifted his stance subtly, opening his guard slightly, an invitation, not a threat. Ochako didn't hesitate. Grateful for the chance, she charged, aiming for a basic tackle to test his balance. Izuku didn't meet her force. He simply flowed sideways, a smooth pivot on the ball of his foot. His hand brushed her shoulder, not pushing, but guiding, using her momentum to send her stumbling harmlessly past him onto the soft sand. So fast. She scrambled up, sand sticking to her clothes, and launched a sidekick towards his ribs. He raised his forearm. It met her shin with a solid thud that vibrated up her leg, jarring her. Before she could recover, his leg swept out, impossibly low and fast, hooking her supporting ankle. The world tilted, and she landed flat on her back with a soft oof, the air momentarily knocked from her lungs. Frustration warred with awe. She rolled, sprang up, and tried to feint a jab with her left, aiming a harder right cross behind it. He didn't bite. His hand shot out, catching her leading wrist not with crushing force, but with unshakable firmness. A subtle twist, a shift of his hips, and her balance vanished again. He guided her descent smoothly, pinning her wrist lightly but immovably to the sand beside her head with one hand, his other hand hovering near her shoulder, ready to block any other movement. His control was absolute, his strength a palpable, immovable presence. He held the pin for only a second, then released her immediately, stepping back. Ochako lay there for a heartbeat, staring up at the darkening sky, breathing heavily. Sand was in her hair, down her shirt. She pushed herself up slowly, her eyes wide with dawning disbelief as she looked at Izuku, who stood calmly waiting, not even winded. How? She breathed, the word barely a whisper at first, then stronger with bewildered wonder. That was incredible. You moved so fast. Blindingly fast. And you're so strong. She gestured vaguely at his physique, her gaze lingering on the defined muscles of his arms and chest. Are you sure you don't have a quirk? Hidden super strength? Enhanced reflexes? Something? Her tone held no accusation, only pure, flabbergasted awe. Nobody just looks like that or moves like that without one. My parents run a construction company. We see strong quirk users lift beams all day, but your control. They'd never believe me. Izuku stepped forward and offered her a hand up. His grip was firm, warm, and calloused, the hands of someone who worked hard, whether with tools or his own body. He pulled her upright effortlessly. No quirk, he stated. The words were simple, flat, devoid of pride or defensiveness. A simple statement of fact. Just training. DSPLN. Understanding leverage and kinetics. He released her hand. The sheer, staggering impossibility of that statement hung heavy in the salty air. Ochako brushed sand off her clothes, still reeling, her mind trying to reconcile his words with the effortless power she'd just experienced. Wow. Uraraka Construction and Salvage, she repeated, almost absently, still amazed. We do demolition, salvage, small builds. Efficiency is kinda our thing, you know? Dad's always trying to save costs. She trailed off, shaking her head again at the sheer physicality before her. Izuku's eyes, previously focused on her face, sharpened almost imperceptibly. Behind his calm exterior, Kiko instantly cross-referenced. Uraraka Construction and Salvage, small-scale operation. Specialization, cost-effective demolition, salvage recovery, modest residential builds. Reputation, diligent, honest. Financial status, precarious. Analysis, high potential for reliable, discreet execution. Synergy with resource acquisition protocols. Uraraka Construction? Izuku asked, his tone shifting subtly. It was no longer the calm warrior or the blunt respondent. It was focused, assessing. Businesslike. You said salvage and demolition. Efficient. He looked directly at her, his gaze intense. Could you provide me with your parents' contact information? He gestured vaguely, encompassing the pristine beach. A potential project. A large one. They might be uniquely suited. The implication was clear. The transformation of this beach was the kind of project he meant. Ochako blinked, utterly thrown by the sudden shift. One moment, she was being effortlessly pinned in the sand by a demigod. The next, he was asking for her dad's business card? Oh, sure. Yeah, of course. Flustered, she fumbled in her small bag, past the trash, pulling out a slightly crumpled, slightly sandy business card. Here, he'd love to talk. He's always looking for good projects. She beamed, her earlier fatigue momentarily forgotten in the whirlwind of sparring, disbelief, and now potential business. She couldn't help another quick, odd glance at his powerful frame, silhouetted against the blazing sunset. He needs builders? What on earth is someone like him building? A fortress? Izuku took the card, his fingers brushing hers briefly. He glanced at it, then gave another short, decisive nod. Thank you, Uraraka-san. Expect contact. Without further ceremony, he turned and walked with long, purposeful strides down the beach towards a discreet, reinforced access path hidden in the dunes. Ochako stood alone on the shore, clutching her slightly sore wrist where his grip had felt like tempered steel, the business card for her parents' struggling company held loosely in her other hand. She watched the impossible boy disappear, his form a dark, powerful silhouette against the dying fire of the sun, utterly bewildered but buzzing with a strange mix of exhilaration, confusion, and the dawning realization that her path to you might have just intersected with something monumental. The clean sand beneath her feet, the vastness of the project it represented, and the casual mention of another large project, hung in the air, silent testaments to the unseen wealth and ambition of the quirkless boy who built himself. The air in the Uraraka Construction and Salvage office hung thick with dust motes and decades of hard work. Blueprints for modest homes and small warehouses papered the walls, interspersed with faded family photos and commendations for cost-effective demolition. Ochako fidgeted beside her parents on a worn sofa, facing the worn desk where her father, Kenji Uraraka, sat pale and sweating. Her mother, Aiko, gripped his hand tightly. Across from them, Izuku Midoriya was an anomaly. At 15, dressed in an impeccably tailored charcoal gray suit that subtly emphasized the breadth of his shoulders and the leanness of his frame, he projected an aura of unnerving calm authority that dwarfed the modest room. Kiko, visible only as a faint, shimmering outline near his shoulder, was a silent, watchful ghost. Kenji stared at the contract Izuku had slid across the desk like it was radioactive. The title alone, Prime Contractor Agreement, the Midoriya Foundation Project, felt absurd. But the numbers, the retainer listed made his vision blur. It was more than his company had grossed in its entire existence. Midoriya-san, he stammered, voice cracking, this scope. We handle homes. Small warehouses. Renovations. We're good at it, efficient. But this is the city. We don't build cities. Izuku didn't blink. His green eyes, devoid of warmth but sharp with calculation, held Kenji's. Your efficiency metrics are optimal. Your ethical salvage recovery practices exceed industry standards by 42%. Your labor relations demonstrate minimal turnover. These parameters are non-negotiable and align with project requirements. Scale, he stated flatly, is merely a function of resources. Resources are a solved variable. He tapped a sleek tablet on the desk. Instantly, Kiko's holographic form solidified, projecting a massive, intricate map that filled the center of the office, making the Urarakas gasp and lean back. It depicted hundreds of square kilometers of coastal and industrial land. Special Development Zone Alpha, Kiko's calm, synthesized voice announced. Land acquisition completed 2:17 hours today via Midoriya Holdings subsidiaries Gamma through Kappa. All municipal, prefectural, and federal permits secured and validated. Zoning restrictions overridden under Strategic Development Act, Clause 7B. The map zoomed with dizzying speed. Primary structure, Midoriya Tower. A sleek, imposing monolith of a skyscraper materialized, minimalist lines, sheer faces of nano-reinforced concrete and composite alloys, subtly evoking interlocked gears culminating in a stylized, glowing blue torch at its pinnacle, the Midoriya emblem. It radiated power and impenetrable security. Function, advanced research and development, central command nexus, secure high-clearance residential, top 20 floors. Structural integrity, designed to withstand magnitude 9.5 seismic events and sustained level 5 villain assault. Timeline, 36 months to operational readiness. Kenji looked faint. Aiko gripped his hand tighter, tears welling in her eyes, not just from shock, but the sheer, impossible promise. Kiko shifted the view. Secondary structures, the Foundation residential complexes. Vast, geometric grids unfolded. Row upon row of identical, utilitarian 10-story apartment blocks, constructed from prefabricated panels in muted, durable tones. They formed neat, repeating patterns around shared green spaces, simple lawns and playgrounds. Units, projected 52, standard layout, 3 bedrooms, 1.5 bathrooms, integrated kitchen living area, 78 SQM. Materials, prefab composite panels, high thermal efficiency, 100-year projected lifespan. Modular design allows for rapid assembly and future reconfiguration. Ochako leaned forward, brow furrowed. Looks efficient, like those old Soviet blocks. But cleaner? Less grim? Izuku nodded once. Precisely. Efficiency. Dignity. No architectural excess. No deprivation. Every unit is identical. Every family has adequate, secure space. Uniformity eliminates preferential treatment and streamlines maintenance. He paused, letting the scale sink in. Rent, he stated, the word dropping like ice. 1,000 yen per unit. Per month. Universal. In perpetuity. No income verification. No credit checks. No discrimination based on quirk status, origin, or prior circumstances. Priority allocation, families displaced by natural disaster, systemic discrimination, or extreme poverty. Kiko flashed an image file. Tsu Azui and her parents, listed as displaced by coastal flooding exacerbated by local quirk-based prejudice. The Azui family is assigned Block 7, Unit Move-In, scheduled for next month upon Block 7 completion. 1,000 yen. Aiko breathed, the concept of such universal, permanent affordability almost incomprehensible. Employment, Izuku continued seamlessly. Uraraka construction will require exponential expansion. All residents of the Foundation complexes are eligible for employment. Kiko will administer aptitude testing and coordinate training programs for required roles: construction, security, maintenance, sanitation, logistics, and administrative support. Fair wages. Full benefits. The Foundation will be largely self-sustaining. Kiko overlaid the map again. A faint, pulsing blue grid spread across the residential zones and the tower site. Integrated security network, Kiko Prime oversight. Perimeter, motion, thermal, and acoustic sensors. Automated non-lethal deterrent systems. Sonic emitters, rapid hardening containment foam emplacements. Internal monitoring, public spaces only. Rapid response, dedicated drone fleet, reconnaissance, containment, medical evac. Policy, zero tolerance for criminal activity within the Foundation's boundaries. External threats monitored and preempted where possible. It wasn't just security, it was an omnipresent, benevolent, yet utterly inescapable AI warden. Izuku fixed Kenji with an unwavering stare. Uraraka Construction builds it. To my specifications. Using my supplied materials and specialized construction equipment. Kiko oversees every metric: material flow, structural tolerances, workforce efficiency, and timeline adherence. Absolute precision. Non-negotiable quality. He tapped the holographic tower, its image dominating the room. This is the bedrock of my legacy. Fail. His voice remained calm, but the weight behind the word was crushing, and the contract terminates immediately. Succeed. He slid another document forward. It showed Uraraka Construction's current valuation, then a figure beside it multiplied by 1,000. And your company becomes the cornerstone of the future's infrastructure. Kenji Uraraka looked at his wife, then at his daughter. The responsibility was a mountain, the scale terrifying. But the security, the legacy, the sheer good. And the number on that second document. He took a shuddering breath, stood up straighter than Ochako had ever seen him, and bowed deeply. We accept, Midoriya-san. We are honored. We will not fail you. Aiko bowed beside him, tears of overwhelmed gratitude finally spilling over. Ochako stared at Izuku. The boy from the beach, whose sweat-sheened muscles had captivated her, was gone. Replaced by this suited titan, wielding wealth and influence like natural forces. The dissonance was jarring. Why? The word burst out of her, sharp with confusion. Why do all this? The rent. It's practically nothing. The cost of the land, the materials, building all this. It's insane. Who does this? Izuku met her gaze. His green eyes held no passion, only the cold certainty of logic. Housing, he stated simply, is a systemic failure. I analyzed the failure. I engineered a solution. People, he added, his gaze sweeping over her parents, are a resource society squanders through inefficiency and prejudice. I do not waste resources. He stood, the movement smooth and powerful, even constrained by the suit. Kiko will transmit the first material manifests and drone operation schematics within the hour. Site mobilization begins Monday at Welcome to the Foundation Project, Uraraka-san. He gave a final curt nod and walked out, leaving the modest office feeling suddenly hollow and insignificant in the wake of his impossible vision. Months later, the Foundation site. The scale was staggering. Once empty land now buzzed with orchestrated chaos under a sky hazed with fine concrete dust. Mountains of Izuku-supplied materials, prefab composite wall sections, gleaming structural alloy beams, and sacks of specialized nanoconcrete dwarfed the bustling activity. Legions of workers in Uraraka construction gear moved with purpose, directed by foremen barking orders into comms. Alongside them worked silent, efficient drones, multi-limbed welders showering sparks with pinpoint accuracy, spider-like climbers securing panels, and heavy-lift drones carrying loads that would cripple conventional cranes. Order from chaos. Apartment blocks rose with astonishing, almost inhuman speed and uniformity. Block 7 stood complete, a stark, clean, 10-story rectangle. Roads of rapid-setting polymer concrete snaked between the grids. Prefab community centers and skeletal playground frames marked future green spaces. It was functional, immense, undeniably imposing in its geometric repetition. First light. Inside Block 7, Unit 304, the Azui family stood in their new living room. Sunlight streamed through large, standard-issue windows onto spotless, durable flooring. The space was bright, clean, and cavernous compared to their flooded, cramped former home. Sue placed a simple potted plant on the windowsill, her large, observant eyes scanning the orderly sprawl of construction beyond. "Ribbit," she murmured, her finger tapping the cool glass. "Very big, very clean, and very, very cheap. Who is this Midoriya? Karo? Building whole cities. For pennies." The tower's heart. At the center of the vast development, the foundation pit for Midoriya Tower yawned like a wound into the earth. It was a canyon of activity. Giant, Izuku-designed sonic drills chewed through bedrock. Plasma cutters, venting controlled jets of blue flame, sliced through stubborn stone formations. Torrents of specially formulated, quick-curing concrete flowed into reinforced channels under the direction of Kiko-controlled drones. The scale here was even more profound. The birth of a fortress, the literal and figurative foundation of Izuku's burgeoning empire. Workers looked like ants against the pit's sheer walls. Kiko's gaze, the final view, soared upwards from a high-altitude reconnaissance drone. Below, the geometric tapestry of the foundation spread out, a vast, orderly grid of gray and beige blocks, punctuated by nascent green spaces. Roads formed precise lines. The completed sections looked inhabited, lights beginning to wink on in the dusk. At the center, the deep, dark maw of the tower's foundation pit pulsed with the lights of heavy machinery, a dark heart waiting to be filled. Overlaying it all, visible only on Kiko's internal display, the faint, pulsing blue grid of the security network thrummed with constant, silent vigilance. Kiko's voice, calm, omnipotent, and utterly devoid of emotion, echoed in the silent control center of Izuku's distant lab, a verdict and a promise. Phase 1. Habitat. Completion status, 47.3%. Occupancy rate, 8.1% and rising. Phase 2. Bastion. Foundation excavation, 22.1% complete. Structural pour schedule, nominal. Material flow, optimal. Drone efficiency, 98.7%. All systems operational. The foundation is secure. The air on training level 47 hummed with contained energy. Polished composite walls reflected the flickering patterns of a deactivated holographic obstacle course. Sweat gleamed on Izuku Midoriya's brow as he flowed through a defensive stance, his movements economical, powerful. Opposite him, Achiko Uraraka moved with newfound grace, her breath coming in sharp bursts. A subtle tap on her own training shoe, a microgravity pulse, launched her into a spinning kick faster than should be possible. Izuku's forearm met her shin with a solid thud, but the force made him shift his weight, his heel sliding back half an inch on the mat. Kiko, calmly, echoing in the space, Uraraka-san, strike velocity increased 12% from last session. Evasion efficiency, 78%. Predictive analysis is improving. Micro-G application, optimal timing. Achiko landed lightly, a fierce grin splitting her face. Almost tagged you that time, Izukin. The nickname, born weeks ago amidst shared lunches and late-night project discussions, slipped out naturally, warmly. Izuku lowered his guard, a hint of approval in his eyes. Significant improvement. Your integration is efficient. They walked to the side, breathing deeply. A panel slid open in the wall, dispensing chilled water bottles. They sat against the cool composite, shoulders almost touching, looking out through the massive, floor-to-ceiling window. Below them, bathed in the late afternoon sun, sprawled the foundation. Neat grids of apartment blocks, roads like precise lines, nascent parks showing patches of green. Lights were beginning to wink on in the completed sections. It was vast, ordered, a testament to impossible will. It's incredible, Achiko murmured, her voice filled with quiet awe. Seeing it from up here, it feels real, solid, safe. She glanced at Izuku. You did this. Izuku followed her gaze, his expression unreadable for a moment, then softened by a rare, small, genuine smile that reached his eyes. Safety, he stated simply, echoing her earlier word, was the primary design parameter. That's the point. A small, framed picture rested on a nearby console, All Might's iconic victory pose, subtly placed amidst schematics. Number 1. Boys. Controlled chaos reigned. Holographic schematics of the Might Mark V, a sleek, blue-chromed evolution of its predecessors, floated in the air like constellations. Tools hummed on racks. And in the center, half buried in the suit's open torso cavity, Mei Hatsum was a whirlwind of pink hair, grease, and sparks. Her welding torch spat blue flame as she fused components deep within the shoulder joint. Kiko, baby! Mei yelled, her voice muffled by her mask but amplified by pure enthusiasm. Reroute plasma conduit gamma through the tertiary manifold. We need that sweet, sweet 0.7% efficiency gain for the repulsors. Every joule counts for maximum aerial kaboom. She pulled back, flipping her goggles up, eyes gleaming manically at Kiko's hovering holographic form nearby. And tell Izuku his femur actuators are divine. The articulation, the raw torque. I could kiss his schematics. Or him. Whichever's closer. She cackled, diving back in as sparks showered around her. Kiko, projecting adjusted conduit paths, affirmative. Conduit gamma rerouted via tertiary manifold. Efficiency projection, plus 0.73%. Izuku is currently occupied. Kissing schematics or operators is statistically inefficient and presents a contamination risk to sensitive components. A soft, insistent chime sounded from the sleek wrist comp integrated into Izuku's training gear. Simultaneously, a small, urgent holographic alert materialized just above it. Security breach, unauthorized airborne approach. Velocity, supersonic, Mach 1.8. Signature, Machigi Tashinori, all might weakened state. Trajectory, impact zone, tower penthouse garden. Threat assessment, high, potential hostile intent. Izuku's eyes narrowed, sharpening instantly. He'd expected All Might to investigate eventually, but not like a missile. He opened his mouth to warn Ochako. Crash shatter thud. Onomatopoeia. The sound was thunderous, a physical wave of noise that vibrated through the floor of level. The massive window rattled in its frame. Lights flickered briefly. Internal alarms started a shrill wail before cutting off abruptly as Kiko overrode them. Kiko calm, internal comms only to Izuku and Ochako, impact sustained. Location, penthouse garden. Structural integrity, minor cosmetic damage, decorative rock wall compromised. Intruder status, conscious. Agitated. Biosigns indicate significant distress. All Might. Ochako gasped, scrambling to her feet, eyes wide with disbelief. Izuku was already moving, a silent streak towards the access lifts, Ochako close on his heels. Smoke and dust swirled in the serene penthouse garden. A decorative rock wall, featuring a carefully curated miniature Zen garden, now had a symbol of peace-shaped hole punched clean through its center. From the rubble, coughing violently, covered in dust and scratches, emerged Tashinori Yagi. His frame trembled, but his sunken eyes blazed with righteous fury and desperate suspicion. He staggered to his feet, pointing a shaking finger towards the doorway Izuku and Ochako had just burst through. "Reveal yourself, Shadow," he boomed, his voice raspy but still carrying the echo of command. "Your tower of tyranny, your web of control. It ends Toda," the words died in his throat. His blazing blue eyes locked onto Izuku, standing calm and imposing in the doorway, the city lights beginning to sparkle behind him. Recognition hit All Might like a physical blow, stealing his breath. The quirkless boy from the rooftop. The armored vigilante from the sludge villain's attack. The one he had dismissed with a crushing no. His gaze flickered past Izuku, taking in the impossible scale of the foundation sprawling below the tower, a city born seemingly overnight. Then back to Izuku. The pieces slammed together with horrifying, world-shattering clarity. "Why you?" All Might choked out, his voice a strangled whisper, suspicion crumbling into stunned disbelief and dawning, terrifying realization. He took an involuntary step back, bumping into rubble. "All this empire, is yours." The sheer scope of it, the power it represented, dwarfed even his legacy. Fear, profound and unexpected, warred with confusion. Ochako stepped forward, planting herself slightly in front of Izuku, her fists clenched, eyes blazing with protective anger. "All Might? What are you doing? Izuku isn't a villain. He's building something good." Explanation.txt. The secure conference room was a bubble of quiet intensity overlooking the glittering expanse of the Foundation. All Might paced like a caged lion, his gaunt frame radiating nervous energy. His initial suspicion had evaporated, replaced by profound confusion and a desperate, gnawing need to understand the enigma before him. He stopped, facing Izuku, who sat calmly at the head of the table, Ochako standing firmly beside his chair. Young Midoriya. All Might began, his voice rough. This power. This influence. It defies reason. A quirkless boy. Building cities, commanding technology that rivals support giants. He ran a bony hand through his hair. But your actions. The housing, the opportunities for people like young Uraraka's family. He gestured vaguely at Ochako. They speak of a conviction, a will to do good, that mirrors the greatest heroes. He took a deep, shuddering breath, the sound ragged. My time. It grows desperately short. My power wanes daily. I came fearing the rise of a new, insidious evil, a successor to him. But I see now. I see you. He straightened, drawing himself up with the remnants of his dignity. His sunken eyes met Izuku's calm green gaze. I was wrong, catastrophically wrong, to dismiss you on that rooftop. One for all. The power I carry. It is a legacy. It needs a successor worthy of its burden, its potential. Someone with an indomitable spirit. Someone who embodies the will to save others, no matter the cost. He reached into his head, pulling out a single golden strand of hair. He held it out towards Izuku, his hand trembling slightly. Young Midoriya Izuku. Will you accept it? Will you inherit my power and become the next symbol of peace? Silence hung thick and heavy. Ochako held her breath, her eyes wide, flicking between All Might's earnest, desperate face and Izuku's impassive one. The weight of the offer, the legacy of the world's greatest hero, was immense. Izuku looked at the offered strand of hair. Not with longing, not with awe, but with the same detached assessment. He gave a complex circuit diagram. Then his gaze lifted, meeting All Might's directly. His voice, when it came, was calm, clear, and utterly final. No. The word dropped like a stone. All Might flinched, his hand jerking back as if burned. The strand of hair slipped from his fingers, fluttering silently to the polished floor. Ochako let out a quiet, involuntary sigh. Relief? Admiration for his unwavering conviction? It was impossible to tell. My path, Izuku continued, his voice unwavering, is built with my mind and my hands. My power is my creation. I don't need your legacy, All Might. He stood, his presence filling the room. I'm building my own. Izuku didn't linger on the refusal. He gestured towards the door. But your time doesn't have to end. Come with me. He led the shell-shocked All Might and the silently processing Ochako down through the tower's secure levels, past labs humming with activity, to a pristine, futuristic medbay dominated by an advanced surgical suite. Kiko's hologram materialized, projecting a detailed, rotating model of All Might's torso. Highlighted in angry red were his stomach and lungs, ravaged scar tissue and missing sections pulsing with decay. Text scrolled beside it. Diagnosis: severe organ trauma, stomach, respiratory system. Quirk-induced cellular degradation accelerating. Current treatment: palliative. Projected active hero time: less than 1 hour day. Projected lifespan: current trajectory 18 months. All Might stared, a fresh wave of weakness hitting him as his condition was laid bare with brutal clarity. Izuku manipulated the hologram. The damaged organs dissolved, replaced by glowing, intricately detailed synthetic constructs, a stomach of self-healing polymer matrices, lungs woven with nanofilament networks mimicking alveoli, integrated micropower cells humming with energy. Solution: synthetic bioorganic replacements, Izuku stated. Derived from my combat suit organics and joint support polymer research. Immune to quirk backlash. Self-sustaining. Kiko managed nutrient and oxygen exchange at the cellular level. This. All Might breathed, his voice barely audible, a flicker of desperate hope warring with disbelief in his eyes. This is possible? It is now, Izuku stated, his tone matter-of-fact. He activated the surgical suite. Holographic targeting lasers scanned All Might. Sterile robotic arms, tipped with gleaming instruments and micromanipulators, descended from the ceiling. Procedure time, approximately 90 minutes. Full metabolic integration and recovery, 48 hours. Projected outcome. He met All Might's stunned, vulnerable gaze. Stable hero form, 10 hours per day. Indefinitely. No further degradation. Ochako gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. Izuken. That's not just tech, that's a miracle. It's engineering, Izuku corrected calmly, guiding the trembling, unresisting symbol of peace onto the surgical table. Hold still. This requires precision. The suite hummed with intense, focused energy. Hiko, initiate project. Phoenix. Full autonomous sequence. Hiko, affirmative. Project. Phoenix initiated. Anesthesia administered. Vital signs are stable. Commencing organ replacement sequence. Estimated completion, 89 minutes. The robotic arms moved with blinding, inhuman speed and precision. The first rays of dawn painted the sky in streaks of pink and gold over the foundation. All Might stood on a high balcony of Midoriya Tower, no longer the skeletal ghost, but filled out and strong. He wore a simple, well-fitting suit. He took a deep, experimental breath, deep, full, painless. No familiar coppery taste, no strain. He flexed his hand, feeling the solid muscle beneath the fabric. Not the overwhelming power of his prime, but a strong, stable foundation. 10 hours. Every day. Indefinitely. He looked down at his hands, hands that could hold hope again. Then his gaze swept over the awakening city below, a city built by the boy he'd dismissed. Finally, he looked back towards the imposing structure of the tower itself, knowing the young legend within was likely already pushing his limits in the training levels or bending reality in his labs. A complex wave of emotions washed over him, profound, humbling awe at the engineering marvel that had restored him, burning shame for his initial fear, suspicion, and dismissal, overwhelming gratitude that defied words, and beneath it all, a flicker of vibrant, renewed hope for the future. The symbol of peace hadn't just been saved, he had been fundamentally remade by the Quirkless boy forging his own legend. A weary, but genuine and revitalized smile touched his lips as he watched the sun climb higher, reflecting off the geometric patterns of the city below. Young Midoriya, he murmured, the wind carrying his words, filled with wonder and anticipation. What impossible thing are you going to build next? The dawn of a new era, built not on inherited power but on relentless will and peerless ingenuity, had truly broken. The morning sun glinted off the imposing H-shaped silhouette of UA High, casting long shadows across the bustling entrance grounds. Nervous chatter filled the air, a palpable buzz of anticipation and anxiety from hundreds of hopeful applicants. Ida Tenya chopped his hands through the air, lecturing a group on proper exam decorum. Kirishima bounced on his heels, muttering about manly spirit. The air crackled with the raw energy of dreams about to be tested. Then a low, powerful hum cut through the noise. A sleek, obsidian-black limousine, longer and more imposing than any regular vehicle, glided to a silent, precise stop directly before the main UA gate. The subtle, geometric emblem of Midoriya Industries was etched discreetly on the door. A hush fell over the nearest section of the crowd. Whispers rippled outward. Who arrives at the UA entrance exam like royalty? A discreetly dressed chauffeur materialized, opening the rear door. Izuku Midoriya stepped out. Dressed in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that emphasized his broad shoulders and lean frame, he radiated an unnerving calm that was utterly alien to the surrounding nervous energy. He turned, offering his hand back into the limo. Ochako Uraraka emerged, her cheeks faintly pink despite the new, high-quality athletic wear she wore, a gift from Izuku's insistence on optimal equipment. She took his hand, a small, grateful smile touching her lips before she schooled her expression into determined readiness. Behind them, the rest of the entourage emerged, Sue Ajui, calm and observant as ever, her large eyes taking in the scene with a quiet ribbit. Shinso Hitoshi, looking perpetually tired but with a new, hard edge of determination in his violet eyes, a Foundation resident given a chance he never dreamed possible. Two other Foundation kids followed, a boy and a girl, radiating nervous awe as they instinctively clustered near Izuku, a protective and respectful cohort forming around him. Quite the entrance, Midoriya-kun, Sue stated plainly, her finger tapping her chin. Efficiency, Izuku replied, his voice low and calm. Kiko calculated traffic patterns and arrival windows. His sharp green eyes scanned the crowd, missing nothing, assessing potential threats and logistics with detached precision. Perimeter scan nominal. No immediate hostiles detected, Kiko's voice confirmed softly in his earpiece. DKU. The roar was a physical thing, a detonation of pure, unadulterated fury that shattered the relative quiet. Bakugo Katsuki stormed through the parting crowd like a human torpedo, palms crackling with violent sparks, his face a mask of apoplectic rage. You useless, Quirkless sheetstain. Think you're some big F shot now? Playing dress-up hero in your dead daddy's fancy car? He didn't bother with a ranged blast. This was personal, humiliating. He lunged, aiming to physically slam his shoulder into Izuku, to knock the Quirkless fake, sprawling in the dirt in front of everyone, to shatter that infuriating calm. Get the hell out of my way, fake. Izuku didn't flinch. He didn't tense. His movement was pure, economical grace. As Bakugo closed the last meter, Izuku shifted his hips a fraction, tilted his shoulder back slightly. Bakugo's grabbing hand swept through empty air where Izuku's chest had been a split second before. Momentum carried Bakugo stumbling forward, off balance and roaring in frustration. Stand still and fight me, you coward. Bakugo whirled, swinging a wild, sparking haymaker aimed at Izuku's head. Izuku leaned back, almost casually, the explosive fist whistling past his chin by millimeters. A follow-up roundhouse kick aimed at his ribs? Izuku pivoted smoothly on the ball of one foot, letting the kick sail harmlessly past his turning form. Every dodge was minimal, precise, and effortless. It spoke of absolute confidence, bone-deep mastery, and an almost dismissive assessment of Bakugo's threat level. Kinetic prediction model active. Threat trajectory nominal. Minimal evasion sufficient, Kiko murmured. The crowd gasped, murmurs rising, disbelief at the Quirkless boy effortlessly dodging the explosive powerhouse. Ochako had seen enough. All of Izuku's infancy memories flooded her. He had told her, Bakugo shoving Izuku into the dirt, burning his notebooks, asking him to take a swan dive, the sneering insults, the casual cruelty. Seeing him attack again here, at the threshold of their dreams, after everything Izuku had built and overcome? Her protective fury ignited, white-hot and focused. As Bakugo, unbalanced and incandescent with rage from another missed swing, planted his foot to launch another reckless charge, Ochako moved. She didn't yell. She didn't telegraph. Her movement was sharp, clean, born of months of grueling training under Izuku's exacting eye. She stepped into his turning momentum, her right fist driving forward with focused power, hips twisting for maximum force. She didn't aim for the jaw or the nose. She targeted lower, precisely the vulnerable area just below the ribs, slightly to the left, the solar plexus. Thud. The impact was solid, shocking. Bakugo's eyes bulged impossibly wide. All the air exploded from his lungs in a strangled, agonized, oh. He doubled over instantly, not in rage, but in pure, incapacitating agony. His hands flew to his abdomen as he crumpled to his knees, then onto his side, gasping like a landed fish, face purpling, tears of pain and shock springing to his eyes. He couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, utterly defeated by a single, perfectly placed blow. Ochako stood over him, fists still clenched, breathing heavily through her nose, her brown eyes blazing with cold fire. Her voice, when it came, was low, clear, and carried absolute, terrifying conviction across the stunned silence. Don't ever again. The silence was absolute. Even Ida had frozen mid-chop, his glasses slipping down his nose. Kirishima stared, jaw slack. The crowd was frozen, utterly shocked by the ferocity and precision of the girl who had stepped out of the limo. Izuku placed a gentle but firm hand on Ochako's shoulder. "Ochako," he said, his voice calm, grounding, familiar only to her in that moment. "Enough. He's done." He looked down at the writhing, gasping Bakugu with no malice, no gloating, just a detached, clinical assessment. He's not a threat. He turned his gaze towards the imposing UA gates, his expression resolute. Our future awaits. He offered Ochako his arm. She took it, her fierce expression softening as she exhaled a shaky breath, leaning subtly into his solid presence for a brief moment of reassurance. He gave a small nod to Tsuyu, Shinso, and the wide-eyed Foundation kids. Good luck. As one, they walked forward. The crowd parted silently before them like the Red Sea, leaving Bakugu choking and humiliated on the ground. Ida sputtered, torn between scandal at the violence and profound unease at Izuku's unnerving calm and authority. Shinso looked down at Bakugu's prone form, a grim flicker of satisfaction in his tired eyes. Tsuyu blinked. Ribbit. Precise strike, Uraraka-chan. Solar plexus. Effective. Inside the cavernous written exam hall, the atmosphere was thick with concentration and the scratch of pencils. Izuku sat perfectly still, his suit jacket draped over the back of his chair. He scanned the questions: complex quirk theory, intricate hero law scenarios, ethical dilemmas, tactical analysis. His pencil moved with machine-like precision, filling in answers instantly. He didn't hesitate, didn't double-check. His understanding was fundamental, deep, and absolute. Quirk Law Amendment 7B clarification requested? Kiko whispered once. Izuku mentally dismissed it. He knew the precedent cold. He finished the extensive exam booklet in just over half the allotted time, then sat back, hands folded, reviewing his answers with unnerving calm. He didn't need to check, he knew they were correct. Nearby, Ochako worked diligently, her brow furrowed in concentration. The high-quality tutoring arranged through the Foundation, combined with Izuku's quiet, patient coaching on complex concepts, showed. She bit her lip, erased carefully, thought hard, but answered with growing confidence. She finished with time to spare, checking her work thoroughly, a determined set to her jaw. Later, a massive screen flickered to life outside the practical exam assembly area. Murmurs rose as names and scores began to scroll. Tension crackled. Eyes scanned frantically. Then, a collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Number 1, Midoriya, Izu 100%. Silence. Then louder murmurs. A perfect score. Unprecedented. The list continued. High scores, respectable scores. Number 7, Uraraka, Ochako's 93%. Ochako's hands flew to her mouth. Her eyes widened, then shone with pure, disbelieving joy. She whirled, beaming, and practically bounced towards Izuku. Izukin! I did it! 93. Her voice was a mix of elation and relief. Izuku turned, a small, genuine smile touching his lips, a warmth reserved only for her. Told you you'd crush it, Ochako. Knew you would. His pride in her was quiet but palpable. Nearby, Bakugu Katsuki stood rigid, his own high score, a very respectable 89%, glaringly overshadowed. He stared at Izuku's name at the very top, at the perfect 100%, and then at Ochako's beaming face celebrating her 93%. His hands clenched into white-knuckled fists at his sides, his teeth grinding audibly. The quirkless Deku, the useless extra, had not only dodged him like he was nothing, had his sidekick put him on the ground, but had also beaten him soundly on the written exam. Humiliation, fury, and a burning, desperate need to prove himself in the practical exam warred within him, fueling the volatile fire that was Bakugu Katsuki. The gauntlet had been thrown. The real test was about to begin. The harsh sunlight beat down on Mach City Beta, baking the concrete canyons and filling the air with the smell of hot asphalt and ozone. Nervous energy crackled amongst the examinees gathered at their designated gates. At Gate 7, Ochako bounced slightly on the ball of her feet, her knuckles white where she gripped her thighs. Beside her, Izuku stood unervingly still, his tailored suit starkly out of place amidst the athletic gear, his gaze fixed calmly ahead. All right, listeners. Present mix-amplified voice boomed across the cityscape, making several jump. Get ready to reumble. The countdown starts. Now. A giant digital timer above the gate flickered to life. Midnight, Ochako turned to Izuku, her usual bright smile replaced by a tight line of pre-battle nerves. "Izuken," she started, voice barely above a whisper. "Good luck." He turned his head, meeting her eyes. A rare, profound softness touched his expression, cutting through the focused intensity. "You've trained harder than anyone here, Ochako," he said, his voice low and steady, meant only for her. "Trust your instincts. Trust your strength." He didn't offer platitudes, he affirmed her capability. As the timer hit 5 seconds, Izuku did something unexpected. He opened his arms slightly, a clear invitation. Ochako didn't hesitate. She stepped into the space he offered, wrapping her arms tightly around his waist. His arms closed around her shoulders, strong and secure, pulling her close. Her face pressed against the smooth fabric of his suit jacket over his chest. It wasn't a quick, nervous squeeze. It lingered. 5 seconds. 4, 3. A deep breath shared, a silent exchange of unwavering support and unspoken understanding in the face of the chaos about to erupt. People nearby, including Kyokujiro at the same gate, stared. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Jiro's POV, her earphone jack twitched against her cheek. "Oh, green hair's got a girl." That was convince. Way more than just good luck. She subtly focused her quirk, the jack picking up the rapid, thudding rhythm of Ochako's heartbeat against Izuku's chest, a frantic drum solo of nerves and something deeper. They separated at 1 second, cheeks faintly flushed, but their eyes locked with fierce, shared determination. A silent promise passed between them: "We do this." Present mic, start. Chaos erupted. Bakugu at Gate 2 blasted forward with a roar, vanishing in a cloud of smoke and fury. Ida at Gate 4 became a blue blur, engine screaming. Tsuyu at Gate 5 leaped high onto a building. Shinso at Gate 9 sprinted, face set in grim determination. Izuku didn't move with the initial surge. He simply tilted his head upwards, gaze fixed on the sky. A high-pitched whistling sound, faint at first, grew rapidly louder, becoming a shriek. High above, a sleek, matte black canister, shedding heat shielding like burning petals, streaked down like a meteor aimed precisely at Gate Crunch. It slammed into the pavement just behind Izuku and Ochako, kicking up a plume of dust but causing no shockwave, no damage to them. Panels snapped open with pneumatic hisses. Assembly was a blur of magnetic precision. Deep blue armor plates, edged with glowing crimson energy lines, flew from the canister. They snapped onto Izuku's limbs, torso, and back with resonant clicks and thunks. The helmet, sleek and menacing with a glowing red-gold V-shaped visor, locked onto the collar. Boot thrusters ignited with a deep thrum, stabilizing him. The entire process took exactly 1.5 seconds. The Might Mark V stood ready, humming with contained power, a monument of advanced engineering. Ochako grinned fiercely, tapping her boots and wrist bracers. Her body lightened instantly, ready for enhanced agility. "Go get him, Izuken," she yelled over the rising din of combat. Jiro stared, jaw slack, earphone jack dangling uselessly. "What the actual hell? Where did that come from?" Teacher's monitoring room. Aizawa. His eyes snapped wide open, his capture weapon instinctively coiling around his neck. "What is that? Unauthorized support gear? That level of autonomous deployment?" Nedzu clapped his tiny paws together, beady eyes gleaming with manic delight. "Fascinating. Predictive trajectory calculation. Rapid deployment magnetic assembly. Oh, the efficiency. This is utterly delightful. And his support gear paper appears in our archives, somehow." Present mic. Look at that entrance, listeners. Talk about making a statement. From suited smooth to armored avalanche in a heartbeat. Welcome to the show, Green Machine. All Might clenched his fist, a complex mix of fierce pride and deep apprehension warring on his skeletal face. So this is it. This is the power he built. Recovery. Girl sighed, adjusting her syringe cane. Such flashy toys. Hope he doesn't break himself or anyone else. Izuku rocketed skyward with a thunderous roar from his thrusters. His HUD lit up instantly, painting the mock city with targeting reticules over robot signatures. He didn't land. He became a blue and crimson comet of destruction, strafing above the streets. Precision plasma bolts, thin and searing blue, lanced down, severing one-pointer limbs at the joints. Micromissiles, no larger than his fist, streaked from shoulder pods, swarming two-pointers and detonating their cores with pinpoint accuracy. His grapple line snapped out like a whip, yanking three-pointers off balance moments before a follow-up plasma bolt finished them. He wove through the urban canyon with impossible grace, a predator clearing the field with terrifying efficiency. But he wasn't just hoarding points. His HUD highlighted examinees. Tsuyu, momentarily cornered by three one-pointers. A low-power sonic pulse emitted from his boot washed over them, scrambling their sensors and making them stumble erratically, giving her the opening to leap away. Threat mitigated, Azui Tsuyu. Shinso, dodging a two-pointer swipe, not seeing a chunk of falling debris from above. Izuku's grapple snapped out, yanking the debris aside moments before it would have crushed him. Debris interception, Shinso Hitoshi. Ida, engines roaring as he kicked apart a one-pointer, unaware of a three-pointer lining up a heavy punch behind him. Izuku streaked past, a single plasma bolt lancing out and obliterating the three-pointer's head unit. Maintain situational awareness, Ida. His synthesized voice advised coolly over the suit's external speakers before he shot upwards again. Kiko, HUD villain points, 78 threat mitigation, high combat efficiency, 97% power reserves, 89%. A deep, seismic tum echoed through the city. Buildings near the center trembled, then shattered as the colossal zero-pointer emerged, a walking skyscraper of armored destruction. Panic surged. Examinees scrambled to flee its path. Jiro's peril, she was caught too close. Using her earphone jacks to jam the circuits of a persistent two-pointer, she didn't see the section of facade ripped loose by the giant's passage. It crashed down around her, a slab of concrete pinning her leg. She cried out, pain and terror spiking as she looked up. The zero-pointer's gargantuan foot, larger than a bus, filled her vision, descending like a mountain. Crap, she gasped, struggling futilely, eyes wide with primal fear. Izuku's dive. A blue and crimson streak plummeted like a meteor. Izuku slammed down onto the street beside her, the impact cratering the pavement, sending shockwaves through the trapped debris. Hold on. His synthesized voice was calm, a stark contrast to the apocalyptic scene. He didn't ask for permission. One gauntlet arm swept under her knees and back, scooping her up securely against his armored chest. His other arm raised, a palm emitter blasting the debris, pinning her leg into harmless rubble. In her panic and the violent motion, one of her earphone jacks instinctively stabbed forward, plugging into a small data port on his armored shoulder. Jiro's sensory overload. Sound. Through her jack, she didn't hear a quirk's energy. She heard the immense, controlled hum, turbines spinning, capacitors charging, coolant flowing, servos whirring. A symphony of powerful, complex machinery. It's all machine. No quirk at all. Sight. Close up, the armor was intricate and terrifyingly powerful. Deep blue composite etched with crimson energy lines. His visor, reflecting the looming zero-pointer's monstrous form, hid his eyes but radiated focused intensity. Touch, held securely against the surprisingly warm chest plate. His grip was firm, unyielding, yet not crushing. She felt the powerful vibration of his thrusters spooling up through her entire body. Smell, ozone from the plasma blasts and the sharp, clean scent of advanced coolant filled her nostrils. Tension, locked in his armored embrace, facing imminent annihilation under the giant's foot, their eyes met through his visor for a split second, her raw fear and dawning awe reflected back at his implacable, machine-like focus. There was a strange, terrifying intimacy in the violent rescue. The DLVY, the thrusters roared. Izuku rocketed upwards and sideways, weaving past falling debris. He deposited Jiro gently but swiftly beside Ochako, who was using her zero-gravity to clear rubble near a relatively safe zone. Ochako, keep her safe. His synthesized voice was clipped, already turning back to the colossal threat. Jiro stared after him, clutching her bruised leg, her earphone jack retracting slowly. She looked at Ochako, stunned. "Your boyfriend is insane." Her voice was shaky. Ochako, flushed but focused, nodded sharply, already scanning for more rubble to clear. "Yeah. Yes. Now help me get this area clear." The shared moment of understanding between them, knowing what Izuku truly was, passed unspoken. Izuku landed on a relatively stable rooftop directly in the path of the advancing zero-pointer. It dwarfed the buildings, an unstoppable force of simulated destruction. Teachers. Aizawa leaned forward, eyes narrowed to slits. "What's he planning? He can't possibly." Netsu steepled his paws, grinning maniacally. "Oh, this will be good." Energy readings spiking. All Might held his breath, knuckles white on the observation console. Recovery Girl sighed deeply. "Foolish child. Such overkill." Present Mike was uncharacteristically silent, leaning into his mic, waiting. Izuku planted his feet firmly. The crimson energy lines across the Mark V blazed with incandescent light. The chest emblem, the stylized gear and torch, pulsed like a captured star, building to blinding intensity. He raised both arms, palms forward. His gauntlets unfolded, revealing complex, layered emitter arrays humming with gathering power. Kiko's voice echoed coolly in his helmet. Maximum pulse, energy capacitors to 200%. Safety overrides disengaged. Structural integrity fields at maximum. Firing solution, locked. The blast wasn't a beam, it was a river. A torrent of pure, concentrated plasma energy, thicker than a subway car, roared from the emitters. It didn't just hit the zero-pointer, it engulfed it. The sound was beyond deafening, a sustained, world-ending crockum that shook the monitoring screens and rattled teeth kilometers away. The light was blinding, washing out every screen in the observation room white for a full second. The light faded. The sound died, leaving a ringing silence. Where the upper torso and head of the zero-pointer had been was a gaping void filled with superheated air shimmering like a mirage. A massive, glowing, white-hot crater scarred the city center. The lower half of the robot, legs and pelvis, slumped forward like a felled redwood, molten metal dripping like wax into the crater below. Steam and smoke rose in thick pillars. Silence, broken only by the crackle of cooling metal and the high-pitched whine of Izuku's suit vents cycling down, hung heavy over the ruined mock city. Kiko, HUD zero-pointer eliminated. Villain points, suit integrity, 98%. Power reserves, 41%. Cooling systems, active. Teacher reactions. Aizawa stared, eyes wide and utterly unblinking, beneath his capture weapon. His usual apathy was shattered. 102 villain points. Without a quirk. That suit. That power. His voice was a hoarse whisper. Netsu cackled, a high-pitched sound of pure, unadulterated glee. He bounced in his chair. Splendid. Utterly splendid. The power management. The tactical awareness. The sheer audacity. And he rescued a fellow examinee under extreme duress. Shota, we must have this one. He rewrites the rules. Present Mike exploded back into sound. Unbelievable. Did you see that, folks? Total. Absolute. Annihilation. He vaporized it. From suit up to city saver in under 10 minutes. And he still has power to spare. What a monster. In the most heroic way possible. Yeah. Recovery Girl shook her head, muttering. Such excessive force. But undeniably effective. Hope he doesn't make a habit of turning city blocks into slag heaps. All Might leaned back in his chair, a small, proud, yet deeply melancholic smile touching his lips. He looked at the screen showing Izuku, standing amidst the devastation he created. He truly doesn't need it. He builds his own miracles. Forge your own path, young Midoriya. Izuku landed lightly near Ochako and a shell-shocked Jiro, the thrusters kicking up a small swirl of ash. The Mark V retracted with a rapid series of resonant clicks and hydraulic hisses. Plates folded inwards, Components slid back into the central core module, leaving him standing once more in his pristine suit. He offered a hand to help Jiro up properly. "Are you injured?" he asked, his real voice calm and clear, as if he hadn't just obliterated a building-sized robot. Jiro took his hand, still wide-eyed, her earphone jack twitching erratically. She looked at him, calm, unruffled, slightly dusty. Then she looked past him at the smoldering, molten crater where the zero-pointer had been. Then back at him. Rattled. "Thanks." A faint blush colored her cheeks as fragmented sensations from the rescue, the hum, the grip, the terrifying intimacy, flashed through her mind. That was something else. Ochako watched the interaction, a thoughtful, slightly curious expression on her face as she deactivated her quirk. She saw the blush on Jiro's cheeks. Bakugu stood amidst a field of wrecked 1- and 2-pointers, smoke curling from his palms. He had witnessed the maximum pulse blast from afar, the blinding light, the earth-shaking roar, the impossible aftermath. He saw Izuku land, retract the impossible suit, and calmly check on another girl. His fists clenched so hard his palms bled, the small cuts sizzling from the heat of his quirk. His face was a mask of pure, incandescent fury, disbelief, and a crushing sense of being utterly, definitively eclipsed. A guttural, inhuman roar ripped from his throat, lost in the settling dust and the distant sirens marking the exam's end. Deku. The penthouse atop Midoriya Tower wasn't just luxurious, it was a testament to calculated serenity. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed a breathtaking panorama, the geometric constellations of lights that were the foundation below and the vast, star-dusted canvas of the night sky above. Sleek, minimalist furniture in warm woods and soft grays offered comfort without clutter. Discrete panels in the walls hinted at integrated tech, currently projecting soft, ambient light and a gentle, wordless melody curated by Kiko. The large dining area overflowed with food, elegant canapes beside steaming bowls of katsudon and comforting potato salad, a perfect blend of high-end catering and Inko Midoriya's heartfelt cooking. Laughter and warm chatter filled the air. Inko bustled between guests, her eyes shimmering with happy tears she constantly dabbed away with a handkerchief. "Yari-san, please have more tea." "You need your strength," she fussed, refilling Toshinori's cup before he could protest. "To see everyone here. To see Izuku like this." Her voice caught, overwhelmed by pride and joy at her son, relaxed and surrounded by people he cared for. Ochako, radiant in a simple, sky-blue dress, held court near the Azui parents, animatedly recounting the exam. And then whoosh! He just shot straight up. The plasma bolts were like laser pointers, taking out the little ones, and then the missiles, bam, bam, bam. Right in the cores. She gestured wildly, her eyes sparkling. And the zero-pointer? Just vanished. Into a giant, glowy crater. Jiro, leaning against a sleek counter in stylish dark jeans and a band t-shirt under an open flannel, added dryly, "Yeah, the sonic boom from that final blast nearly blew my jacks right out of my skull. My ears are still ringing." She sipped her drink, her gaze flickering towards Izuku, who was gently steering Sameder Azui away from a delicate holographic sculpture of a molecular structure. Izuku moved through the gathering with the same calm efficiency he applied to everything, but softened. Dressed in a charcoal gray cashmere sweater and dark pants, he looked effortlessly comfortable. He refilled Tsuyu's parents' drinks, discussing the community gardens in their sector of the Foundation. He shared a respectful, silent nod with Toshinori, who stood by the window, sipping tea and watching the scene with profound gratitude and a touch of melancholic wonder. As Izuku passed Ochako carrying 2 fresh glasses of sparkling water, their fingers brushed lightly on the exchange. She looked up, catching his eyes. A soft, NTMT smile passed between them, a silent conversation held in a single glance. It lingered, warm and knowing. "Thanks, Izukin," she murmured, her hand resting briefly on his forearm, a touch that spoke of deep familiarity and affection. He gave a barely perceptible nod, his gaze holding hers for a heartbeat longer before moving. Later, They stood side by side at the massive window, shoulders almost touching, looking out at the city Izuku had willed into existence. Ochako leaned her head lightly against his shoulder, a gesture of pure comfort and contentment. Izuku didn't pull away. His arm shifted subtly, his hand resting closer to hers on the cool railing. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The shared view, the quiet hum of the gathering behind them, the warmth of their contact, it was enough. Inko watched them, fresh tears welling. She pressed her handkerchief to her lips, her heart overflowing. Toshinori observed the easy intimacy too, a complex mix of joy for the young man who had saved him and a poignant ache for the solitary path he had walked for so long. He built a city for others, and found his peace within it. Jiro found herself near Izuku again at the high-tech food station, eyeing a dessert that shimmered with edible holographic glitter. She poked it cautiously with a fork. "So, building your own, huh?" she asked, her voice low, direct. She met his eyes. "That's everything I heard during that mess. It's all you? No quirk whispers, just pure machine." Her curiosity was genuine, tinged with the lingering awe from her near-death experience and the sensory overload of the rescue. Izuku nodded, picking up a pair of sleek, perfectly balanced titanium chopsticks he'd designed himself. Every circuit, every line of code. Kiko handles complex computations and system integration, but the design, the engineering, the purpose. That's mine. He gestured slightly towards the dessert with the chopsticks. As he did, the back of his hand brushed against hers as she reached for the same serving tongs. They both froze for a microsecond. A faint but unmistakable blush dusted Jiro's cheeks as she pulled her hand back quickly. Sorry." Izuku met her eyes, his expression calm but his gaze intense, focused. It wasn't predatory, but deeply observant, assessing her reaction. "No need," he said, his voice even. "The dessert is good. Try it." He smoothly used the tongs to place a shimmering portion on a small plate and offered it to her. The moment crackled with unspoken potential, the memory of being held against that armored chest, the NTMD sound of the suit's inner workings, and now this accidental touch and his intense focus. Ochako, chatting with Tsuyu nearby, noticed the blush on Jiro's cheeks and the way Izuku held Jiro's gaze. She didn't frown or look jealous. Instead, a thoughtful, almost calculating expression crossed her face for a fleeting moment before she smiled warmly at something Tsuyu said. Later, Tsuyu found a quiet corner with Izuku near a large, serene aquarium wall filled with exotic fish she'd personally helped select species for. "Ribbit," she began, her large, unblinking eyes fixed on him. "It's good to see you like this, Midoriya-kun. Surrounded. Happy." She took a slow sip of her drink. "You built a whole city for families, Karo. Safe spaces. Community." She gestured subtly but unmistakably towards Ochako, laughing with Inko, and then towards Jiro, now examining a complex wall panel displaying city energy grids. "What about your own family space? It seems you might have room for more than one kind of significant connection." Her tone was calm, direct, observant. Not pushy, but testing the waters, gauging his openness with her characteristic amphibian frankness. Izuku didn't flinch or look away. He followed her gesture, his gaze resting momentarily on Ochako's radiant smile, then sweeping past Jiro's focused profile, before returning to Tsuyu's steady gaze. His expression was thoughtful, calm, considering her words with the same analytical weight he gave a complex schematic. "Connections are complex systems, Azrisen," he stated, his voice low and even. "Like ecosystems. They require careful balance, deep understanding, and mutual respect to thrive. I value the people in my life." He paused, the intensity in his eyes softening slightly, deeply. How those connections evolve depends entirely on the dynamics, the compatibility, and the desires of everyone involved. It was neither confirmation nor denial. It was an acknowledgement of possibility, framed within his worldview of systems and mutual agency. "Right now," he added, a rare, small, genuine smile touching his lips as he looked back towards the warm gathering, "I'm grateful for the balance we've achieved. It feels secure." Tsuyu nodded slowly, a slight, knowing crook appearing at the corner of her lips. Ribbit, balance is essential. Just checking the water temperature, Karo. She left it at that, seemingly satisfied with his open-ended, respectful answer. The evening gradually wound down. The Azui family gathered their wide-eyed children, expressing heartfelt thanks for the invitation and, more profoundly, for their home and safety within the foundation. Toshinori approached Izuku, clasping his hand firmly. "Thank you, young Midoriya," he said, his voice thick with emotion that transcended the physical healing. "For everything." Inko hugged him fiercely, murmuring motherly blessings. Ochako lingered, helping Inko clear a few final plates. She gave Izuku a warm, lingering hug at the door, her arms tight around him. "Tonight was perfect, Izukin," she whispered against his shoulder. "Thank you." Jiro was the last guest. She paused at the elevator, turning back. "Thanks for the invite." "Midoriya," she said, meeting his eyes directly. "Thanks again." "For the rescue." She offered a small, genuine smile, a hint of that earlier curiosity, and perhaps a flicker of attraction in her dark eyes. "Your city. It's something else. Feels solid." The elevator doors slid open. Izuku watched the display panel as the elevator descended. He turned and walked back to the vast window, the sprawling, glittering tapestry of the foundation laid out below him, a testament to his will and ingenuity. The silence of the penthouse was comfortable, filled with the lingering warmth of the gathering. Kiko's voice, soft and synthesized, resonated gently in the air. Social engagement analysis, positive. Emotional resonance levels, high across primary attendees. Connection parameters with Uraraka Ochako, stable, deeply integrated. Connection parameters with Jiro Kyoka, showing significant positive trend with high intrigue factor. Overall relational matrix, stable, with measurable potential for expansion and diversification. Izuku looked out at his city, the lights reflecting in his calm green eyes. A small, contented smile, a quiet acknowledgement of success, of safety achieved, and of possibilities unfolding, touched his lips. "Good," he murmured, the architect surveying his living creation, satisfied and open to the future. The morning sun beat down on training ground Beta, turning the dusty field into a furnace. Class 1A stood assembled, buzzing with post-exam energy and nervous anticipation. Izawa Shoda, a bored wraith in black, leaned against the fence, his scarf loose around his neck, his bloodshot eyes already scanning for weaknesses. Bakugo Katsuki radiated barely contained fury beside the stoic iceberg that was Todoroki Shoto. Uraraka Ochako stood subtly closer to Izuku than anyone else, her posture protective. Jiro Kyoka watched Izuku with sharp, curious eyes, her earphone jack angled slightly towards him. Tsuyu Azui observed everything with her usual calm blink. Aizawa droned through the tests, his monotone voice cutting through the heat. Izuku Midoriya, clad in the sleek dark blue UA tracksuit, moved with unnerving calm and precision. 50-meter dash. Izuku exploded off the line. His form was perfect, a piston-like drive from powerful legs, minimal upper body sway, and arms pumping with brutal efficiency. He crossed the line in 5.58 seconds. Kirishima Ijiro, leaning forward with shining eyes and sharp teeth bared in an excited grin, practically vibrated. "So manly. Look at that explosive start. Like a coiled spring." Mina Ashido bounced beside him, her pink skin practically glowing. "Whoa. He's like a rocket. Zero wasted motion." Bakugo scowled, having clocked 5.20s himself. Grip strength. Izuku took the dynamometer. His hand closed with deliberate, crushing force. The digital display flashed 285 kilograms. Kirishima gasped. "Hardened. That's an insane grip. My hardening doesn't even get me close to that." Mina whispered loudly to Hagakure. "He doesn't even look that bulky. How does he pack that much power?" Seated toe touch, effortlessly, Izuku folded forward, palms sliding flat on the ground well beyond his feet, spine straight, demonstrating inhuman flexibility. Tsuyu croaked approvingly. "Ribbit, Excellent hip and hamstring mobility. Near perfect range of motion. Endurance run. Izuku set a punishing, metronome-steady pace around the track. While others gasped, stumbled, and turned red, he finished near the front, breathing deeply but in control, with minimal sweat. Mina fanned herself dramatically, watching him. He's not even sweating that much. Is that normal? Side-to-side hops. Across the marked squares, Izuku became a blur. His balance was impeccable, his landings silent, his changes of direction instantaneous. Aizawa's eyebrow twitched upward, a flicker of surprise beneath his exhaustion. Jiro's eyes narrowed further. His footwork was too precise, too economical, too perfect for just athletic training. It hinted at intense, specialized DSPLN. Push-ups, sit-ups, machine-like. Rep after rep, performed with flawless form and relentless power. No strain showed on his face, only focused intensity. Kirishima was practically vibrating out of his skin, muttering, "Manly." So manly, under his breath. That's the ultimate peak human physique. No quirk needed. So cool. He unconsciously mimicked a bicep flex, staring at Izuku. The ball throw. The tension peaked. Bakugo stepped into the circle, snarling. "Die!" he roared, unleashing a massive explosion that rocketed the ball skyward. 705.2 meters. He grinned savagely, a challenge thrown at Izuku without words. Ochako followed, using her zero gravity to send the ball into infinity, earning a proud, subtle smile from Izuku. Aizawa called, "Midoriya, your turn." Whispers rippled through the class. Finally, his tech quirk. Gotta be something awesome. Like a giant cannon arm. Maybe he summons a robot to throw it? He didn't use anything else. Maybe he is just strong. Izuku stepped into the circle. He picked up the standard softball. He glanced at his sleek, dark wrist comp. Kiko. Authorization. Projectile assist. Minimal signature. Execute. A faint, high-pitched whistling whoosh cut through the air, growing rapidly louder. Heads snapped upwards. A sleek, matte black, articulated armor forearm and gauntlet, unmistakably matching the style of his exam suit, streaked down from the clear blue sky like a comet. It slammed into place around Izuku's right arm and shoulder with a resonant, metallic snap hiss. The entire process took less than a second. Class reaction. Mina Ishido, holy pink. Arm from the sky. That's so cool. She jumped, eyes wide with pure, vibrant fascination. Kirishima Ijiro, unbelievably manly. Support gear level, maximum. That's the spirit. He punched the air, radiating admiration. Kaminari Denki, dude has a detachable arm? Sign me up for whatever upgrades he's got. Siro Hanta, okay, that's just cheating levels of cool. How does it even know? Jiro Kyoka, her earphone jack twitched. She heard the precise mechanical locking, the hiss of integrated hydraulics, the complete lack of any biological energy signature. Her eyes widened slightly in vindication. Just tech. Pure, insane tech. Bakugo Katsuki, teehee. Still hiding behind your toys? Pathetic. Conveniently ignoring his own quirk usage. Izuku ignored them all. He ped the armored arm back. It wasn't a massive wind-up, but every muscle in his torso, shoulders, and legs visibly coiled with immense power, transferring force seamlessly. The armored gauntlet gripped the ball firmly. He launched it with a whip-crack motion, combining his explosive strength with a precisely timed micro-thruster burst from the gauntlet's palm. The ball became a white streak. Distance, 712.3 meters. Beating Bakugo by a slim, deliberate, utterly infuriating margin. The armor forearm instantly detached, rocketing back into the sky with another whoosh, vanishing as quickly as it appeared. Izuku lowered his bare arm. Aizawa checked the measuring device. He pulled out his tablet, scrolled through Izuku's file, his usual apathy replaced by intense scrutiny. His eyes snapped up, locking onto Izuku. Midoriya. His voice cut through the stunned murmurs like a knife. Your quirk registry lists none. Confirm. Izuku met his gaze, utterly calm. Confirmed, sense. Quirkless. Mina Ishido. Wait. No way. Quirkless. But the arm, the running, the grip, everything. She stared at Izuku like he was the most fascinating, impossible puzzle she'd ever encountered, her pink skin flushed with excitement and disbelief. Kirishima Ijiro. That makes it 1,000 times manlier. He did all that. Himself. Ultimate hard work. The pinnacle of human potential. He looked ready to rush forward and challenge Izuku to an immediate arm wrestling match, his admiration burning fiercely. Kaminari Denki, bro? Seriously? No quirk? At all? How? How are you even alive after that run? Ida Tenya, most irregular. Such physical prowess without a quirk defies standard physiological models. And that apparatus. Its deployment speed and integration suggest highly advanced proprietary technology. Truly unprecedented. He chopped the air rapidly, flustered and deeply impressed. Uraraka Ochako. She stepped forward, placing herself subtly beside Izuku, a proud, radiant smile on her face. Told you he was amazing, she said, her voice clear and confident, directed at the stunned class. Jiro Kyoka, a small, knowing smirk touched her lips before she hid it behind her earphone jack. She gave Izuku a barely perceptible nod. Called it, all machines. All him. A flicker of deep respect warmed her gaze. Tsuyu Azui, ribbit. Impressive. Truly self-made Karo. He walks the path he forged. Her tone was calm approval. Bakugu Katsuki, impossible. You lying piece of sheet. There's an OF way. You cheated. You must have. Rage, humiliation, and utter denial exploded. He lunged forward, palms sparking violently, aiming straight for Izuku. I'll kill Y. Aizawa. Instantly, the capture scarf lashed out, wrapping Bakugu tightly mid-lunge. Aizawa's eyes glowed red, his hair floating around his head as erasure activated. Bakugu! Stand down! His voice was a whip-crack of authority, freezing the explosive teen in his tracks. Bakugu struggled, spitting curses, but was effectively immobilized. Aizawa lowered his goggles, the red glow fading, but his intense gaze remained fixed on Izuku. Top 5 placement. Across the board. Without a quirk. He paused, his eyes flicking briefly to the sky where the arm had vanished. Using unconventional tools. His gaze returned to Izuku, a grudging respect warring with deep suspicion beneath the exhaustion. You've set a new standard, problem child. One I'll be watching very closely. As Aizawa announced the next test and the class began to disperse, Mina Ishido practically bounced over to Izuku, Kirishima right beside her, radiating enthusiastic energy. Midori, she chirped, leaning in with sparkling eyes and a wide, flirty grin, using the nickname instantly. That was so already. Quirkless? Seriously? You're like the ultimate underdog hero. Pinky's seriously impressed. She tilted her head, genuine curiosity mixing with open attraction. How'd you get so fast? And strong? Secret training? Special smoothies? Spill the beans. Thumped his own chest hard, his sharp teeth gleaming in a wide, earnest, almost worshipful smile. He moved a hardened fist towards Izuku. Dude, that was the manliest thing I've ever seen. Total commitment. Unbreakable spirit. Facing down Bakugu with just your own power and tech. You're an inspiration. His eyes shone. We gotta train sometime. Show me your routine. Please. I gotta get that manly dedication. Izuku, slightly taken aback by their combined, vibrant intensity but maintaining his core calm, gave a small, acknowledging nod. DSPLN. Engineering. And yes, intense, specialized training. He met Kirishima's hardened fist bump with his own bare knuckles, a solid, respectful impact. Perhaps. Ochako watched from a few steps away, a thoughtful, slightly amused smile playing on her lips as she observed Mina's flirty energy and Kirishima's raw enthusiasm. Jiro, lingering nearby, observed the interaction intently, her earphone jack twitching slightly as she absorbed the dynamic, a thoughtful look in her eyes. The gauntlet was thrown, the standard was set, and the Quirkless legend had irrevocably altered the landscape of Class 1A. The air in the boys' locker room was thick with steam and adrenaline. The soft hiss of showers, the clatter of lockers, and the buzzing tension of a post-test high mixed into a humid, heady haze. Midoriya Izuku stood calmly before his locker, shirtless, a towel slung loosely around his waist as he fastened his UA-issued slacks. Every movement was deliberate, efficient, like watching a precision machine execute human motions with effortless grace. His body was a living contradiction, sculpted like a Greek statue, yet marked with pale, thread-thin scars, evidence of discipline, not disaster. His shoulders rolled as he reached for his shirt, the back muscles rippling like cords of tempered steel. The room collectively paused. Kirishima Ijiro, midway through tying his towel, simply froze. His eyes locked on Izuku's back, his jaw slack. "So manly," he whispered in awe, voice cracked and reverent. Peak form, ultimate dedication. He dropped his towel without realizing it, face flushing crimson. Kaminari leaned toward Siro, barely containing a snort. "Dude, Kirishima's gonna spontaneously combust." Siro's eyes were wide and respectful. "Can you blame him? Midoriya's built like a statue. Like a set-off statue that can bench press a tank." Tokoyami tilted his head, his shadow quirking slightly. "Form is precise. Presence. Oppressive. Intriguing." Ojiro nodded politely. "He moves like he's been drilled since birth. Every muscle does something." Even Mineta, leering by default, had stopped not in reverence, but calculation. His eyes flicked toward the locker vent high up on the wall, then to the side wall. His gaze narrowed. Izuku, unaware or more likely, unaffected, pulled his shirt over his head. The fabric stretched taut over his shoulders before settling smoothly into place. Kirishima finally stammered into action, fists clenched, eyes gleaming. Sorry, Midobro. It's just seriously, man, how many hours? What's your protein intake? Is that natural?" Izuku buttoned his collar, tone perfectly calm. "Sufficient. DSPLN is key." The lack of detail only deepened the mystery, and Kirishima looked moments away from starting a shrine in Izuku's honor. Across the wall in the girls' locker room, the energy was no less chaotic, just redirected. Mina was practically vibrating as she pulled on her sports bra. "Ochako, Aka, your Izukuin is, like, illegal levels of hot. Secret billionaire? Quirkless genius? Powerful overlord? And that body girl, he flexes in parabolas." Tsuyu, wrapping a towel around her shoulders, blinked. "Ribbit. He is objectively aesthetically pleasing and physically formidable. Like a particularly well-designed amphibious drone." Jiro's cheeks were tinted pink. She turned away, pretending to adjust her earphone jacks, but her mind drifted back to the rescue, the cold hum of the armor, the cradle of power in his arms, the voice synthesized yet warm. Ochako, halfway into her uniform top, blushed a deep scarlet. "He's just trained. He works hard, and the techie's amazing, but," she sighed, smile blooming. "He is." Mina leaned in, conspiratorial, eyes alight. "Okay, serious question, girl to girl. That level of everything, is it exclusive? Or is your Izukuin open to sharing his blessing of man with others?" Jiro choked on her breath. Toru wheezed with giggles from the corner, invisible clothes trembling. Momo sputtered, scandalized. "Mina!" Ochako's face turned scarlet, but she didn't say no. She hesitated. Thoughtful. Curious. A little overwhelmed. "I don't know," she whispered. Back in the boys' room, Mineta slid behind a bank of lockers, small fingers clutching his phone. His breathing was shallow. He looked up at the narrow vent that connected to the girls' showers. Grinning. Scheming. "Pay dirt," he whispered. "Mina. Yamamo. Toshiki-chan." He angled the phone upward, finger hovering over record, and stopped, because in the polished steel of a nearby locker, Izuku's reflection appeared, cold green eyes locked on Mineta through the mirror. The calm vanished. Izuku moved. The phone hit the ground with a clatter. Mineta didn't even get to scream before Izuku's hand locked around his wrist like a hydraulic clamp. The grip alone made Mineta whimper. "What?" Izuku's voice was low, deadly. "Are you doing?" Mineta stammered, eyes wide with terror. Kirishima had seen it. The phone. The angle. The vent. His awe curdled into disgust. "You filthy little—" Izuku didn't wait. A piston punch to Mineta's gut folded him instantly. A surgical chop to the shoulder made a wet crack echo across the room. Kirishima lunged, grabbing Mineta's legs, holding him still as he thrashed weakly. "You absolute unmanly scumbag." Izuku struck again, a rising knee into the ribs, another crunch, then an open palm strike to the sternum. Mineta's body slammed back into the lockers. A dent. A wheeze. Tears and snot streaming. The room fell silent but for Mineta's sobbing. Tokoyami closed his eyes. Darkness sometimes strikes first from within. A thundering crash drew attention. Mina's voice called from the hall, "Aizu-kun?" The locker room doors flew open. Girls flooded in behind Aizawa, eyes glowing, scarf already rising. What the hell is going on here? Then he saw the scene, Mineta, crumpled and broken. Izuku, bloody-knuckled, impassive. Kirishima, still holding him by his knees. Midoriya. Kirishima. "Explain. Now." Izuku bent, calm as ever. He picked up the fallen phone and tapped the screen once. The display lit up, live feed girl showers. The thumbnail showed blurry, unmistakable outlines of NDE forms Mina's pink hair. Jiro's curves. Ochako turns, the towel slipping seconds before revealing her form. Guess. Her. Jiro's expression turned murderous. Momo's jaw dropped in icy disgust. Ochako looked ready to throw up. Toru's expression was indistinguishable XD. Kiko's voice, soft and cold in Izuku's earpiece. Security breach confirmed. Predatory behavior detected. Action within tolerable thresholds. Social justification validated. Izuku held the phone up to Aizawa without a word. Aizawa stared. His eyes burned. His scarf snapped not at Izuku. It wrapped around Mineta like a snake, binding him tightly. Evidence confirmed. "Expulsion is immediate," Aizawa said flatly. "Recovery girl will mend his fractures before police intake." He never asked how the injuries occurred. Scene, aftermath. As Aizawa dragged Mineta away, bumping into the door frame and leaving a small blood drop on the floor, the room fell still. Ochako rushed forward, grabbing Izuku's hand. "Your knuckles, oh my god, Izukin." He looked down. "Calm again." A soft smile touched his lips. "I protected them." Jiro approached, quiet, resolute. "Thanks." "Seriously." Her fingers brushed his briefly. "I mean that boy is sick." Mina's usual flirty chaos was gone, replaced by something deeper. She grinned, low and appreciative. Diamond green. That was justice. And yeah, kinda hot. Kirishima exhaled hard, clapping Izuku's shoulder. "You're a diamond hero, man. You're like the manliest, and I helped." Izuku nodded. Kiko whispered, social cohesion rising. Approval nodes activated. "Your mother would be proud." Izuku's fist closed. Steady. Unshaken. He had crossed a line. And everyone knew why.